The third question was, do you think it's possible your anger is making ordinary mistakes feel intentional? Paige read it from an index card, although she kept pretending she wasn't. We were sitting in her living room on a Sunday morning with the curtains open and every lamp turned on. My mother was beside Aunt Denise on the couch. My father had taken the armchair nearest the front door. Paige's husband, Matt, stood by the kitchen island, rearranging coffee pods as if he'd accidentally wandered into the wrong apartment and couldn't find a polite exit. There was a box of tissues on the coffee table. No food. Paige had invited me to brunch. Ordinary mistakes, I repeated. We're asking you to stay open, Mom said. I'm open. I'm just wondering why Paige needs notes to ask me how I'm doing. Paige's thumb slid over the top card. They're talking points. In your handwriting? Mom's face didn't change. Paige's did. That was when the card slipped. Half landed by Paige's feet. 3 skated across the hardwood toward me, face up. If she denies everything, ask whether that might be part of the problem. If she becomes hostile, keep voices calm. Bring conversation back to her obligation to family once she is calmer. I stared at that last one long enough for the room to lose all sound. Then I looked at my mother and asked, "How long have you needed me to be crazy?" 3 months earlier, I was standing in my parents' kitchen, writing the date of Dad's hip surgery on a dry erase calendar Mom had bought 7 years ago and never erased herself. The calendar said, "Blessed" at the top in fake wood grain letters. Underneath, in my handwriting, were Dad's pre-op appointment, his surgery, 2 physical therapy sessions, Mom's haircut the day their furnace filter needed changing, and a reminder that Paige was bringing dinner on Thursday. Paige had drawn a heart beside her name. "You made my heart lopsided," she said. "You made your heart lopsided." She was leaning against the counter eating shredded cheddar directly from the bag. She had stopped by to help us plan, which so far meant she had brought a yellow legal pad, written Dad at the top, and eaten enough cheese to compromise Thursday's casserole. At 36, Paige could still look 16 when she was caught doing something ridiculous. Same wide blue eyes, same chin tucked down, same tiny shoulder shrug that made our parents act as though consequences were a cruel rumor invented by older sisters. Mom came through the back door carrying 2 grocery bags and said, "Erin, honey, could you grab the rest?" Paige was closer to the door. I looked at her. She looked into the cheese bag with great concentration. "Sure," I said. There were 6 more bags in the trunk, plus a case of bottled water Mom had bought, even though their tap water was fine. By the time I made the 3rd trip, Paige had moved on to explaining why Dad would recover faster if he watched uplifting television. "No news," she told him. "It raises cortisol." Dad sat at the kitchen table with one hand wrapped around his coffee mug. He had been told to stop eating after midnight before surgery and was reacting as though the surgeon had sentenced him to cross the desert. "What about baseball?" he asked. "Depends who's winning." "Then I'm dead." I set the water on the floor. "He'll be home one day after surgery, not returning from war." Dad pointed at me. "That's the bedside manner I'm counting on." Mom unpacked groceries in a rush, putting tomatoes in the refrigerator and yogurt in the pantry, until I quietly followed behind, correcting things. She'd been nervous since Dad's pain got worse. Nervousness made her fast and bossy. It also made her pretend she wasn't nervous. The nurse said someone should stay here the first few nights, she said, just in case. I know, and I can do it. Obviously. I'm his wife. I know. "But you know I sleep heavily," Dad snorted. "You woke up last night because I changed the thermostat. You changed it to 66. Exactly. Medical emergency." Mom ignored him. "I just don't want you girls thinking I expect anything." That sentence had a special meaning in our family. I don't expect anything meant I have already assigned the task and would like gratitude for not asking directly. Paige folded the top of the cheese bag. "I can stay Friday." "His surgery is Tuesday," I said. "I know. Friday's the first night I don't have anything." Mom gave me a quick warning glance. "What?" Paige asked. "I'm trying to help. You're offering the 4th night. I have inventory Wednesday, and Matt's work thing is Thursday. Matt sold flooring. His work things appeared whenever Paige needed them and vanished whenever she wanted concert tickets. Dad lifted his mug toward her. "Friday's great, Peanut." There it was. Peanut. Paige's diplomatic immunity. I uncapped the marker again. "I'll stay Tuesday and Wednesday." Mom touched my forearm. "You don't have to." "Okay." She blinked. "Okay, what?" "Okay, I don't have to." Paige laughed before she realized Mom wasn't laughing. Dad hid his mouth behind his mug. I let them hang there for 2 seconds, then wrote my name across Tuesday and Wednesday. Mom exhaled. "Don't do that to me." "Do what?" "You know what?" I did know. I had briefly acted as if her words meant what they meant. My phone buzzed on the counter. It was a message from my boss, Celia, asking whether I had time to talk Monday morning. She'd been doing that lately, closing her office door, asking questions about my workload, mentioning the regional coordinator position without technically offering it. The job would mean more money and occasional overnight travel. It would also mean I couldn't be the person who left work at 2 because Mom couldn't figure out why the cable box said HDMI 2. I turned my phone face down. "Work?" Mom asked. "Just Celia. On a Saturday?" "It's a text. She knows about Dad's surgery, right?" "She knows." Mom nodded, but it wasn't really a nod. It was a filing motion. Information received and stored for use later. Paige picked up her legal pad. "So Aaron has Tuesday and Wednesday. I have Friday." "Mom, you're here Thursday." "I'm here every day," Mom said. "You know what I mean?" I took the pad from Paige and wrote down medication times, the physical therapist's number, and the grocery delivery account I had already created for them. Paige watched me for a moment. "You love this stuff," she said. "What stuff?" "Organizing, taking charge." "I don't love it. I'm good at it." Same difference. It wasn't, but explaining that would have taken longer than doing the work, which was how most of my life had happened. Dad's surgery went well. The surgeon came out to the waiting room, said words like clean and uncomplicated, and Mom cried hard enough to make him pause, as if he'd delivered bad news by mistake. Paige arrived 20 minutes later carrying 4 coffees and wearing a sweatshirt that said, "Good energy." "I knew he'd be fine," she announced, hugging Mom. "You knew after Aaron texted you," Mom said, but she said it fondly. Paige handed me a coffee. It had oat milk and cinnamon, exactly how I liked it. "You look terrible," she whispered. "I've been here since 5. "I know. That's why I brought the industrial size." This was the problem with Paige. If she had been selfish all the time, I could have hated her cleanly. Instead, she noticed my coffee order. She sent me voice messages when she heard songs from high school. After Daniel ended our 7-year relationship, she showed up at my condo with bourbon, frozen pizza, and a list titled, "Reasons He Looks Like a Colonial Shoemaker." Number 4 was calves untrustworthy. She could be generous in ways that felt intimate and useless, in ways that cost me whole weeks. At the hospital, she charmed the nurse, got Dad to eat half a cup of gelatin, and took a photograph of him giving a thumbs up from bed. Mom posted it with the caption, "Our team is unbeatable." By the time Dad came home Wednesday afternoon, Paige had gone to inventory. Mom was exhausted from worrying, and I had slept 9 hours across 3 days. Dad's walker caught on the lip of the front door. "Lift, don't push," I told him. "I'm trying. You're pushing. I've been walking longer than you, not with a new hip." Mom hovered behind us with his discharge folder pressed to her chest. "Should I call someone?" "We are the someone," I said. Dad looked up at me, sweaty and pale. "You always did enjoy being in charge." He smiled when he said it. That almost made it worse. We got him inside. I settled him in the recliner, put the medication chart on the side table, filled his water, adjusted the footrest, found the television remote under Mom's knitting, and made him promise not to stand without the walker. Mom followed me into the kitchen. "Your father's just scared," she said. "I didn't say anything. Your face did. My face has been awake since yesterday." She opened the refrigerator and frowned into it, though I had filled it 2 days earlier. "I don't know what we would do without you." At the time, it sounded like love. That first night, Dad rang the brass dinner bell Mom had placed beside his chair as a joke. At 1:12 a.m., he needed the bathroom. At 2:40, he thought his calf felt warm. At 4:05, he wanted toast because the pain pill was bothering his stomach. Mom slept through all three. At 7, she came downstairs in her robe and found me wiping crumbs off the kitchen counter. "You should have woken me." I tried. "You barely touched my shoulder. I said your name 4 times. Well, you know I'm a heavy sleeper." Dad rang the bell from the living room. Mom closed her eyes. "I'm going to shower before the nurse comes." She kissed my cheek as she passed. On Thursday afternoon, I was supposed to go home. Instead, Paige called and said Matt's work dinner had been moved up, so she couldn't come sit with Dad while Mom went to the grocery store. "Use delivery," I said. "Mom says they always pick bad produce. Then Mom can wait until tomorrow." There was a pause. "Erin?" She sounded really stressed. I stood in my parents' laundry room holding one of Dad's compression socks, which resembled a beige boa constrictor. "I'm also stressed." "I know. That's why I don't get why you're making this into a thing." "A thing?" I said, "I'm sorry. You said Matt has a work dinner." "He does." From the living room, Mom called my name. Not loudly, she never had to. Paige softened her voice. "Can you just cover tonight? I'll make it up to you." She always said that as if we had an account somewhere, as if all I needed to do was submit the proper form. I looked through the doorway. Dad was asleep in the recliner. Mom stood over the kitchen table sorting coupons she would not use. The house smelled like menthol rub, reheated soup, and the lemon cleaner Mom used whenever she couldn't control something. "Fine," I said. "You're the best. No, I'm available." She laughed because she thought I was joking. That evening, Mom returned from the store with 2 bags of perfect produce and a bouquet of daisies Paige had sent through a delivery app. The card read, "For the dream team. Love you all." Mom set the flowers in the center of the kitchen table. "That was thoughtful," she said. I was peeling off Dad's compression socks. My own overnight bag was still sitting unopened by the stairs. "Very," I said. Mom watched me a moment. "You don't have to make everything sound like criticism, Erin." Dad looked down at his swollen feet. I held one sock in each hand, too tired to come up with anything sharp enough to protect me. So I just asked, "What did I criticize?" Mom adjusted the flowers, turning the card so it faced the room. "You know," she said, "sometimes it isn't the words." I looked at her hand on the vase. "So now it's my tone?" "I didn't say that." "You said it wasn't my words." Dad cleared his throat. "Anybody want to ask how the patient's doing?" "You were asleep," I said. I was resting my eyes in a medically heroic fashion. Mom laughed too quickly. The tension broke because Dad had asked it to, which was one of his more reliable talents. He could turn any argument into a joke, then act surprised when the argument came back larger. I rolled the compression socks into a ball and put them beside his medication chart. "I'm going home." Mom's smile vanished. "Now?" "That was the plan. But Paige isn't coming until tomorrow. You're here." "Of course I'm here. I only meant if he needs help getting up. I showed you how to support him." Dad raised one hand. "Still in the room." Mom lowered her voice anyway. "You know my back. I knew everything. Her back. Her heavy sleeping. Her discomfort driving after dark. Her belief that apps were designed to steal checking account numbers. Her inability to lift cases of water that she continued buying in bulk. "I can stay," I heard myself say. Relief crossed her face before concern could catch up to it. "Are you sure? I don't want you overdoing it." I went upstairs to get my toothbrush. Paige arrived Friday at 5:20 wearing jeans, ankle boots, and enough eye makeup to suggest that sitting with our recovering father had a dress code. I had showered in Mom's bathroom and put on the same black pants I'd worn to the hospital because the alternative was Dad's sweatpants. "You're still here?" Paige asked. "Good to see you too." She set 2 foil pans on the counter. I brought lasagna. From Mom's freezer, I transported lasagna. Mom hurried in from the living room. "Isn't she wonderful?" She crossed 3 suburbs under refrigeration. Paige gave me a look. "What is going on with you?" "Nothing. I'm tired. You're doing the voice." "What voice?" "The one where every sentence has a knife in it." Mom began peeling the foil off one pan. "Let's not." I wanted to ask which part counted as not. Paige calling me wonderful for driving a frozen dinner across town? Me responding? Mom's automatic decision that the dangerous thing in the room was my answer? Instead, I picked up my bag. Medication charts by Dad. He took the pain pill at 4. Next one's at 10 if he needs it, but he may not. Make sure he uses the walker, even if he tells you the surgeon personally approved tap dancing. "Got it," Paige said. "He has to do the ankle pumps every hour." I said, "I've got it." "Okay." I hugged Dad in the living room. He pulled me closer than usual and whispered, "Thank you, sweetheart." His cheek was rough. He smelled like the hospital soap still clinging to his skin. "You're welcome. You're my rock." I smiled because he meant it as praise. Outside, I sat in my car with the door shut and the engine off. My hands stayed on the steering wheel for a while. I wasn't crying. I wasn't thinking anything dramatic. I simply couldn't remember the last time I had been in my condo for more than 6 consecutive waking hours. At home, the air smelled stale. A mug sat beside the sink with a brown crescent dried into the bottom. There were 3 messages from Celia, one from Aunt Denise, and a photograph in the family chat of Paige kneeling beside Dad's recliner. Dad was smiling. Paige had added a sticker that said, "Nurse of the Year." Mom replied with 6 red hearts. I put my phone face down and slept for 13 hours. Monday morning, Celia closed her office door and said, "I'm going to ask you something, and I need you not to answer like you're being chased. That is an alarming opening." She leaned back in her chair. Celia was 61, silver-haired, and usually dressed in colors that sounded edible. That day, she wore a plum jacket over a cream blouse. She had managed our department for 11 years and could make a budget meeting feel like a conversation between adults, which was rarer than it should have been. The regional coordinator position is officially open. I saw. "I want you to apply." I looked at the folder she slid across her desk but didn't touch it. "You've been doing half the job since Kevin left," she said. "You already work with the satellite offices. You know the reporting system better than anybody. It involves travel, 2 nights a month on average, occasionally 3. My father just had surgery. Your father isn't applying." That made me laugh, then feel disloyal for laughing. Celia folded her hands. "You don't have to tell me what's going on at home. You do need to stop apologizing for having one. I don't apologize. You apologized to me Friday for not answering an email sent at 9 p.m. That was manners. That was a hostage blinking in Morse code. I opened the folder. The salary was more than I expected. Not life-changing, but enough to make my condo feel less temporary. Enough to replace the car that made a grinding sound whenever I turned left. The benefits were better. The duties sounded interesting in a way I had almost forgotten work could be. When do you need an answer? I need an application by next Friday. I need you to decide whether you want it before you start listing reasons other people might not. I ran my thumb along the edge of the paper. Celia opened her door again. "An errand? Yeah? If you say you're too busy, I'm going to ask who made you busy." My phone rang as I reached my desk. Mom. I stared at it until the final vibration, then called back because ignoring it only turned 1 call into 4. "Is everything okay? Your father's bandage looks strange." "What kind of strange?" "Darker." "Did you call the surgeon's office?" "I wanted you to look first. I'm at work." "I know. I could send a picture." "Send it to the nurse." Mom sighed. "I don't know why you're snapping at me. I'm not snapping. There's a nurse whose job is to assess surgical bandages. You've already seen it, so you'd know if it changed." Behind her, Dad said something I couldn't make out. "What did Dad say?" "He says it looks the same." "Then call the nurse if you're worried. I just thought you might stop by on lunch. My lunch is 30 minutes. The silence carried disappointment with such precision that it could have been measured. "Never mind," she said. "I'll handle it." That was never just a sentence. It was a bill sent to the future. Mom: No, really. You have work. We understand. I'll come after 5. You don't have to. I'll come after 5. When I arrived, the bandage looked exactly as it had Friday. Mom admitted this after I compared it to a picture in Dad's discharge folder. I think the lighting was different, she said. Dad sat at the table eating crackers. I told her. I was being careful. You were being Linda. Tom. He winked at me. I should have left then. Instead, I changed the sheets because Dad had spilled water in bed. I took the trash out. I made a list of questions for his physical therapist. When Mom mentioned they were low on milk, I drove to the store. By the time I reached my condo, Paige had messaged me privately. Mom said you were rude to her today. I typed, Mom called me at work about a bandage she hadn't called the nurse about. The dots appeared immediately. She's scared. Dad has never had major surgery. That doesn't make me a nurse. No one said you're a nurse. I stared at that until the edges of the phone pressed into my palm. Then why was I called instead of one? You always know what to do. I set the phone down without answering. 10 seconds later, it rang. Are we fighting? Paige asked. I don't know. Are we? I asked you a question. You told me I was rude. I said Mom said you were rude. That's different? Yes, I'm giving you information. Thank you, CNN. She gave a short laugh despite herself. There. That. Why are you so angry? I'm tired. You've always been tired. It came out casually, but it landed with the weight of something true. I sat on the edge of my bed. Do you hear yourself? Oh, come on. No, seriously. I've always been tired, so that means what? It means you don't have to make this week into evidence that nobody appreciates you. I didn't say nobody appreciates me. You're acting like it. Because I told Mom to call a nurse? Because everything is an audit with you. Who stayed what night? Who brought what? Who called first? You keep receipts. I looked toward my dresser. In the top drawer, under old tax returns and spare batteries, was a birthday card Paige had given me the year Daniel left. On the front, she had crossed out Happy Birthday and written congratulations on losing 190 pounds of man. I had laughed so hard, I cried. I don't want to fight with you, I said. Neither do I. But I need you to show up when you say you will. I did show up. Friday. Yes, you offered Friday because you had nothing else. What did you want me to do, Aaron? Cancel my job? You said it was Matt's work dinner. It was work adjacent. I closed my eyes. Paige's voice softened. I'll take Dad to physical therapy Wednesday. His appointment is Thursday. Whatever. Thursday. You have the address. Send it to me. It's on the calendar and in the group chat. Can you just send it to me? I did. Because, again, doing it took less time than explaining why I shouldn't have to. On Thursday at 11:15, Dad's physical therapist called my cell. Hi, Aaron. I have your father here. We're just confirming his next appointment. I glanced at the clock on my computer. He's there? Yes. Your sister brought him. A small, mean part of me had expected Paige to forget. The relief felt almost like shame. Great. Is everything okay? He's doing well, improving faster than expected. In the background, I heard Dad laugh. Then Paige said, Tell her I didn't lose him. The therapist handed over the phone. See, Paige said, competent adult. I never said you weren't. You imply it with your pores. I laughed. How is he? Flirting with the therapist. Then he's healed. Mom packed us 6 sandwiches. She expresses anxiety through cold cuts. Paige lowered her voice. Listen, I'm sorry about Monday. You are doing a lot. The apology was so simple that my shoulders dropped. Thank you, but you also have to let people help without correcting how they do it. There it was, the small hook attached to every kindness. I'm working on it, I said, because I wanted the conversation to remain good. Love you too. That night, Mom posted another photograph. Dad stood between her and Paige outside the therapy office, leaning on his walker. Paige held up 2 fingers in a victory sign. First outing with his 2 favorite nurses, Mom wrote. I stared at the picture until I hated myself for caring. Then I opened Celia's folder and began filling out the application. The application asked me to describe a time I had managed competing priorities, and I had to stop myself from writing, "Please see attached family history." I finished it just after midnight, reread it twice, and scheduled it to send at 8 the next morning. Scheduling made it feel less impulsive, as if I were not a woman sitting in pajama pants making a potentially significant career decision while eating almonds over the sink. At 8:04, Celia appeared beside my desk. I received something. "Technology is amazing. Don't get cute. I might have to interview you. You definitely have to interview me." She smiled. There she is. The interview was the following Tuesday. I wore a navy dress I hadn't touched since Daniel's company Christmas party and spent the drive remembering all the ways he used to calm me down before things like this. Not with speeches. He would hand me coffee and say, "If they don't see it, they're not qualified to hire you." That memory irritated me because it was useful. Daniel and I had broken up 10 months earlier, after 7 years of almost moving forward. We had almost bought a house, almost gotten engaged, almost gone to Vancouver. Our relationship had become a waiting room where I kept asking him to hold my place while I ran home to fix something. He finally stopped waiting. I had told everyone it was mutual because there was no family-approved way to explain that the man I loved had gotten tired of competing with emergencies that were rarely emergencies. Mom said Daniel never understood loyalty. Paige called him a colonial shoemaker and stayed with me for 3 nights. Neither of them asked whether he had a point. The interview panel included Celia, a man named Richard who tapped his pen against his teeth, and Anita from Human Resources, who had the unnerving ability to remain completely still while listening. "Tell us about a difficult professional boundary you've had to establish," Anita said. I nearly laughed. Instead, I told them about a satellite office manager who had started calling my personal phone after hours for problems that could wait until morning. I explained how I created an escalation guide, clarified what counted as urgent and redirected routine issues to email. "And how did the manager respond?" Richard asked. He was annoyed. Celia's mouth twitched. "What did you do with that?" Anita asked. "Nothing." He was allowed to be annoyed. The words came out before I could polish them. The room went quiet. Anita nodded and made a note. I thought about that sentence for the rest of the day. He was allowed to be annoyed. It sounded so reasonable when the person being annoyed wasn't my mother. Dad's recovery accelerated once he decided the walker was insulting his dignity. He progressed to a cane, which he used selectively and incorrectly. Mom sent daily updates to the family chat. Tom walked to the mailbox. Tom made his own coffee. Tom tried to carry laundry and has been placed under arrest. Paige responded with celebration emojis. I responded with questions about swelling and medication until I noticed what I was doing and stopped. On Sunday, I arrived for dinner to find Dad in the garage, trying to move a bag of lawn fertilizer with his cane hooked through the handle. "What are you doing?" He looked over his shoulder. "Nothing you need to know about. You just had a hip replaced." "I'm aware. I was there." I took the bag from him. "Your mother asked me to move it." "Mom asked you?" "She mentioned it was in the way. That is not the same thing." "It's exactly the same thing if you've been married 43 years. I carried the bag to the storage shelf while he leaned against the car, annoyed and relieved. "You don't have to do everything," he said. I turned around. "You first." He smiled. "Fair." Inside, Mom had set the table for 6. Aunt Denise was coming, which explained the cloth napkins. Mom only used them when someone outside the immediate family might witness our paper products. Denise arrived with a bottle of wine and a lemon cake from a bakery she pretended not to visit every week. She was Mom's older sister by 11 months, a fact both of them presented as a clerical mistake. Denise was shorter, louder, and less committed to making unpleasant things sound pleasant. She hugged Dad, inspected his cane, and said, "You look old. You look expensive." "I am." Paige and Matt came in behind her. Matt carried flowers. Paige carried her phone and a story about a woman who had blocked the grocery store aisle with a cart positioned like a border wall. Was there another aisle? I asked. That's not the point. It feels relevant. Matt kissed my cheek. Don't engage until she's fed. He was quiet around our family, but not weak. He had simply learned that any opinion expressed near Mom could become a committee assignment. During dinner, Denise asked about work. I applied for the regional coordinator job. Paige stopped with her fork halfway to her mouth. You did? Mom looked at me. The one with travel? Occasional travel. You said you were only thinking about it. I thought about it. Dad lifted his wine glass. Good for you. Thank you. Where would you go? Matt asked. Mostly Cleveland, Columbus, Indianapolis. It depends on the month. Mom adjusted her napkin. That sounds exhausting. It might be busy. And with everything else. What everything else? She looked toward Dad, who was cutting his chicken. Dad glanced up. Don't use me. I walked to the mailbox. You're still recovering. I also made coffee. You left the filter folded over. I didn't say I made good coffee. Denise laughed. Mom didn't. Paige asked, would you get more money? Yes. How much? Paige, Matt said. What? We're family. Enough to make it worth considering. Mom sipped her wine. Just be careful you're not taking on too much because you're trying to prove something. The table went quiet enough for me to hear the refrigerator motor kick on. What would I be proving? I don't know. You've been under a lot of stress. I applied for a promotion. I'm aware. People do that. Of course they do. I said, be careful. Denise looked from Mom to me. Linda, she's 40. I think she can identify employment. Mom's mouth tightened. Nobody said she couldn't. Paige jumped in with, I think it's great. If she gets a hotel room in Cleveland, I'm visiting. You live 40 minutes from Cleveland, I said. Free tiny shampoo changes the math. The conversation moved on, but Mom's sentence remained beside my plate like something no one wanted to clear. After dinner, I carried dishes into the kitchen. Paige followed with one wine glass. I'm proud of you, she said. You didn't know I applied. I'm proud retroactively. I turned on the faucet. Thanks. Mom's just worried. I didn't ask. She thinks you've been pushing yourself since the breakup. Mom thought Daniel was selfish. She contains multitudes. I laughed despite myself. Paige bumped her shoulder against mine. Do you want the job? Yes. The answer surprised both of us. Paige set the glass beside the sink. Then I hope you get it. For a second, it was just us, and I let myself believe that could be enough. Mom called from the dining room. Aaron, can you look at your father's insurance statement before you leave? Paige reached for a towel. I'll dry. Mom called again. It says something about an adjustment, and I don't understand it. I heard you. I just don't want to forget. The statement was 3 pages long. Nothing was wrong. The adjustment was the amount the insurance company had negotiated with the hospital, exactly as it had been on every statement they had received for years. You could have called the number on the back, I said. Mom sat beside me at the table. I don't like talking to those people. Those people answer questions about the statement. You're so much better at this. Across the room, Paige dried the same plate for nearly a minute. I explained the adjustment. Mom nodded, thanked me, and folded the statement into the discharge folder I had organized for Dad. On my way out, Denise followed me to the driveway. You okay? She asked. Why wouldn't I be? Because your mother spent dinner acting like you'd applied to join the circus. She doesn't like the travel. She doesn't like anything that requires scheduling you in advance. I opened my car door. She's been stressed. Your father's walking around trying to fertilize things. He shouldn't be. Not the point. I looked at her. Denise tucked her hands into the pockets of her red coat. Your mother has always been scared of losing people. She responds by making herself difficult to leave. That sounds healthy. I didn't say it was healthy. I said it was Linda. There was affection in the way she said Mom's name, along with fatigue. Denise knew her better than anyone and had still chosen to remain close. That made her warning feel less like permission and more like a weather report. 2 days later, Celia called me into her office. The panel was unanimous, she said. I gripped the arms of the chair. Unanimously, no. You really do prepare for impact as a hobby. She slid the offer across the desk. The salary looked even better with my name above it. My start date would be the first Monday of the following month. There was a training trip to Columbus 2 weeks after that, one overnight. I read every line trying to find the clause that said I had misunderstood. Celia waited. I want it, I said. Good. I should think overnight. You can, but I want it. Her smile was small and satisfied. Then sign, I did. For the rest of the afternoon, I felt taller, not transformed. I still had an inbox and a dent in the passenger side of my car, but I had made a decision that belonged entirely to me, and nothing terrible happened. At 5:30, I called Dad first. He answered with, "Do I need bail money? I got the promotion. I knew you would. You did not. I'm your father. I'm required to have unreasonable confidence." His pride warmed me in a place I had tried not to notice was cold. "Is Mom there?" "She went to get her nails done." "Want me to tell her?" "I'll call later." He paused. "She'll come around." "I didn't say she had to come around." "No. You just called me first." I leaned against my car. "Dad, she worries. That's all." "Why does everyone keep telling me that?" "Because you hear worry as criticism. Maybe she delivers it as criticism." He went quiet. A truck passed through the parking lot, music vibrating from its open windows. Finally, Dad said, "Don't let this turn into a whole thing, sweetheart. You got good news. Enjoy it." I wanted to ask who turned things into whole things. I wanted him to be proud without also asking me to manage Mom's response. Instead, I said, "I'll call you tomorrow." Mom called me before I reached home. "Your father told me," she said. "That was fast. I'm happy for you." Her voice was careful, almost formal. "Thank you. I am. Truly. I just wish you'd told me you were accepting it. I told you I applied. Applying isn't accepting. They offered it today. And you said yes today." "Yes." "Without discussing it with anyone?" The traffic light turned red. I stopped behind a minivan and watched a plastic bag roll across the intersection. Who was I supposed to discuss it with? I don't know. Your family. Someone who knows you. I know me. "I didn't mean you don't." "What did you mean?" She sighed. "This is exactly what I was afraid of." The light turned green. "What were you afraid of, Mom?" "That you would hear a simple question as an attack." I drove the rest of the way home with her voice coming through the speakers, gentle and wounded, explaining that she only wanted me to be happy. By the time I pulled into my parking space, I was apologizing for my tone. I realized I was doing it halfway through the sentence. "I'm sorry if I sounded," I stopped. Mom waited. "If you sounded what?" The turn signal clicked in the quiet car. I had parked, but I hadn't turned off the engine. "I'm not sorry I accepted the job. I never asked you to be. You asked why I accepted it without discussing it with the family. I was surprised." "Okay. You're allowed to be surprised." The sentence tasted borrowed, but it worked. Mom was silent for so long that I checked whether the call had dropped. Then she said, "Well, I can tell you've made up your mind." "Yes. I hope it's everything you want." It should have sounded supportive. Somehow, she made it sound like the final line in a cautionary tale. My new job began with 2 days of meetings, 4 new passwords, and a welcome lunch, where Richard spent 15 minutes explaining the difference between regional oversight and regional interference. The difference seemed to be whether people liked you. Celia waited until we were back in the office to ask, "How's the altitude? Thin air? Strange wildlife?" "You did well." I talked for maybe 6 minutes. "You listened for the other 54. Management loves that. The work was busy in a way that steadied me. Problems arrived with names and deadlines. If a report was late, I could ask why. If someone wanted me to take on additional work, they had to say so in an email instead of sighing near me until I volunteered. At home, the family group chat grew more active as I became less available. Mom sent photographs of Dad's cane leaning in dangerous places. Paige sent a video of Dad doing his physical therapy exercises while singing "Eye of the Tiger" badly. Dad sent a photograph of the television because he was trying to photograph the casserole he'd heated for lunch. I laughed more than I wanted to. On Wednesday, Mom texted, "Call me when you have a second. Nothing urgent." I called at lunch. "Have you thought about Easter?" she asked. I looked at the calendar on my desk. "What about it?" "Well, you usually host. I'm in Columbus that week. You get back Thursday. Thursday night. Easter's Sunday. I know how calendars work." There was a small pause. "That sounded unnecessary," she said. It was. "Sorry." The apology came automatically, but this one I meant. Being angry didn't make every sharp thing wise. "I'm not hosting this year," I said. "I'll come to dinner if someone else hosts. Your father can't have everyone here." Dad was walking without the cane inside the house, but I let that go. Paige can host. Her apartment's too small. It's bigger than mine. She and Matt don't have a proper dining table. They own a table. It seats 4. Mine seats 4 until I add the folding table from the closet. Mom lowered her voice. "Paige gets overwhelmed entertaining." I leaned back in my chair. "I also get overwhelmed. You've always been good at it. That doesn't mean I have to do it every year. I said you were good at something, Erin. Not everything is exploitation." The word hung between us. I hadn't used it. I didn't say exploitation. You've implied it. When? Lately? Constantly. I rubbed the spot between my eyebrows. "Mom, I'll be away all week. I'm not coming home Thursday night and spending Friday and Saturday cleaning and cooking. We can all help." The last time everyone helped, Paige brought ice and Mom polished silverware while I cooked a ham, 2 vegetables, potatoes, rolls, and a pie. Then everyone can help at your house. It won't be the same. No, it'll be at your house. Why are you determined to make this difficult? I looked through the glass wall of the conference room across from my desk. 2 coworkers were arranging chairs for an afternoon meeting, lifting and carrying without anyone needing to be praised as a rock. "I'm not hosting Easter," I said. Mom made a sound like I had hung up on her while still on the phone. "All right, I'll let everyone know." She did. 20 minutes later, the family chat lit up. "Change of plans. Easter at our house this year. Erin is unable to host." Paige replied, "Everything okay?" I typed, "Everything's fine. I'll be traveling for work." Mom added, "She gets home Thursday but needs the weekend to recover." That was factually true and emotionally radioactive. I started typing a response, erased it, and put my phone in my desk drawer. Aunt Denise called that evening. "Your mother wants to borrow my roasting pan. Congratulations. She says you're too exhausted to host Easter." I said I would be too tired after a work trip to clean and cook for 6 adults. 7. "I think Matt's brother is coming." Wonderful. I've never met him, but I already resent his appetite. Denise laughed. "Do you want me to tell her to stop being dramatic?" "No. You sure? Then she'll say I recruited you. She already thinks you've recruited me." "To do what?" "Hard to say. There's no newsletter." I sat at my kitchen counter and opened a container of leftover noodles. What exactly did she say? Denise hesitated just long enough to make the question hurt. She said, "You've been on edge since Tom's surgery and this new job might be too much. I've had the job for 3 days." Which is why I told her she was being ridiculous. And she said, "I don't see you enough to know." That was Mom's favorite form of ownership. No one knew me well enough to disagree with her. Did she mention the job was my choice? She thinks that's part of what's worrying. I stopped with the fork halfway to my mouth. What does that mean? She didn't say. Yes, she did. She said you're making abrupt decisions. I applied for a promotion after working there 9 years. I know. I told them before I applied. I know. My boss has been discussing it with me for months. Erin, what? I know. Denise's voice had lost its humor. I set the fork down. Sorry. You don't have to convince me. Apparently, I have to convince somebody. The Columbus training went well until Wednesday night, when Mom called during dinner with my new counterparts. I declined the call. She called again. I excused myself and went into the hotel lobby. What happened? Your father's car is gone? For one wild second, I pictured a theft. What? He drove to the hardware store. okay? He isn't supposed to be driving. The surgeon cleared him last week. Short distances. The hardware store is 2 miles away. He didn't tell me? I leaned against a fake marble column. Behind me, my coworkers were laughing over appetizers. What do you want me to do from Columbus? I thought you should know. Why? Because if something happened, you'd be upset nobody told you. Something didn't happen. He took the car without his phone. Then talk to him when he gets home. I can't talk to him when he gets like this. Dad got stubborn when Mom gave him instructions in the form of questions. Wouldn't it be smarter to wait? Are you sure you should eat that? Do you really need to go today? He would say he was only answering. Call Paige, I said. She's at dinner. So am I. Mom went quiet. I could see myself reflected in the hotel's glass doors. Navy blazer, name badge, phone pressed hard against my ear. I didn't realize I was such a burden, she said. You called me in another city because Dad drove 2 miles after being medically cleared. I called my daughter because I was scared. And your daughter told you Dad is fine. You don't know that. The lobby doors opened. A couple came in carrying takeout bags, and I stepped aside. What would make this call over? I asked. What? What are you asking me to do? I'm not asking you to do anything. Then I'm going back to dinner, she inhaled sharply. Mom, call me if there is an actual emergency. I thought family could call each other. Not twice in a row during dinner over a trip to the hardware store. I didn't know you were at dinner. You didn't ask. Her voice changed. It became smaller, less certain. You're right. I'm sorry. The apology disarmed me so completely that I almost took everything back. Is Dad's phone on the counter? I asked. Yes. Then he'll be home soon. He probably forgot it. I know. Lock the back door after he comes in. The latch sticks. I know. I'll call tomorrow. You don't have to. I said I will. When I returned to the table, Richard had ordered me another drink. Everything all right? Anita asked. Family call. She nodded with the grave understanding of someone who had received her share. Richard lifted his glass. If no one is bleeding, the rule is 1 call. That's your rule? That's my mother's rule. She established it after I called her 3 times because I couldn't work my washing machine. How old were you? 38. I laughed, and the conversation moved on. No one asked why I was laughing too hard. Dad called the next morning. Your mother says you yelled at her. I didn't yell. She says you made her feel foolish for being worried. She called me twice because you went to the hardware store. I needed a furnace filter. You shouldn't have left without your phone. I know that now. You knew it before. Probably. I stood by the hotel window looking down at the parking garage. Why didn't she call Paige? She didn't want to interrupt her dinner. There it was, clean and small. What did you just say? Dad sighed. Don't do that. Do what? Turn an offhand comment into an indictment. You called me during training to defend Mom for calling me during dinner. But Paige's dinner couldn't be interrupted. I didn't know you were at dinner. She didn't ask. This isn't a contest. No. In a contest, people know they're playing. He went silent. I heard Mom in the background asking whether he wanted more coffee. Their kitchen clock chimed the 1/4 hour. Finally, Dad said, You haven't seemed like yourself lately. The sentence was mild, almost tender. My fingers tightened around the curtain. What does that mean? It means you're taking things hard. Things are happening. Things always happen. And I always handle them. Nobody's saying you don't. I watched a car circle the garage below me, searching for an exit it had already passed. Dad, I have to go. See? This is what I mean. What exactly do you mean? But he had no exact answer. He said he loved me. He said we would talk when I got home. At Easter, Mom hugged me too carefully, like I was the one recovering from surgery. Paige watched from across the room. When I asked if she needed help in the kitchen, Mom said, No, honey, sit down. We don't want you getting overwhelmed. Paige looked away before I could catch her expression. I'm not overwhelmed, I said. Mom set a bowl of rolls on the table. I didn't say you were. You just said you didn't want me getting overwhelmed. I was teasing. Nobody laughed. Aunt Denise came in from the kitchen carrying the gravy boat. "Linda, where do you want this?" "Beside Tom." "See?" Denise said to me. "She still trusts you with gravy. Things can't be too bad." Mom smiled as if Denise had supported her. I sat between Dad and Matt's brother, Eric, a friendly accountant who had brought 2 bottles of wine and seemed increasingly aware that he had accepted the wrong Easter invitation. Paige sat across from me. Every time our eyes met, she gave me a little smile that looked less like affection and more like a temperature check. Dad said grace. Mom carved the ham because he was apparently still too fragile to hold a knife, but sturdy enough to drive unsupervised to a hardware store. We passed potatoes. We discussed Denise's ongoing war with the owner of the dry cleaner, who had lost a belt from one of her coats and offered her store credit. "I don't need credit," Denise said. "I need the belt. The coat looks like a bathrobe without it." "Maybe it's a sign to let the coat go," Mom said. "That coat cost $400. Eric looked impressed. What was it made of? Regret, apparently. For 10 whole minutes, we were a normal family. Then Paige asked how the promotion was going. "It's good." "Just good?" "Busy. Interesting. I like the team. And Columbus? Also good." Mom spooned green beans onto Dad's plate. "Except for the incident." "What incident?" Eric asked. "There was no incident," I said. "Your mother called at a bad time," Dad said. "She called twice because Dad went to the hardware store." Mom looked at me. "I didn't realize that was public information. You brought it up. I said there was an incident. There wasn't." Paige put down her fork. "Okay, can we not do this?" I looked across the table. "Do what?" "This thing where every little comment becomes a trial." I answered a question. Eric doesn't need the whole story. Eric became fascinated by his ham. I didn't tell the whole story. "Aaron," Mom said gently, and that was worse than if she'd snapped. "Let's just have a pleasant meal." I felt 8 eyes waiting to see whether I could accomplish that. "Absolutely," I said. For the rest of dinner, I was pleasant enough to be embalmed. I complimented the potatoes. I asked Matt about a flooring project at a hotel. I let Dad tell the same story twice about a nurse who had confused him with another patient named Thomas Mercer, even though he had told it to me twice at the hospital. When Mom made a joke, I laughed. When Paige reached for the salt, I passed it before she asked. After dessert, I carried plates into the kitchen. "I told you to sit," Mom said. "I'm clearing the table. You don't have to prove anything." The plates shifted in my hands. "I'm not," she touched my elbow. "Honey, you look tense." "Because you keep telling me how I look. That's not fair." I set the plates beside the sink carefully. Paige appeared in the doorway with 2 coffee cups. "Can everyone just lower the volume?" "We're not being loud," I said. I mean, emotionally. Denise came in behind her. "How does somebody lower emotional volume?" "You know what I mean. I truly don't." Mom opened the dishwasher. "Nobody is fighting. It was one of our family's foundational beliefs. If Mom said nobody was fighting, then any person who continued to feel hurt was fighting alone." I picked up my purse. "I'm going home." Dad looked up from the dining room. "Already? I have work tomorrow." "So does everyone," Mom said, then added, "But of course. You've had a long week." There was no clean response. Any disagreement would prove the claim. Agreement would accept it. I hugged Dad. He held on for an extra second. "Call me," he said. "I will." Paige followed me outside. The afternoon had turned cold, and she wrapped her cardigan around herself as we stood near my car. "What's happening with you?" she asked. "Nothing is happening with me. You've been different since Dad's surgery. I've been saying no more often. That's not all it is." "What else?" She looked toward the front window. Mom's silhouette moved behind the curtains. "You seem angry at everyone." "I'm angry right now." "See? What does that prove?" "I'm not trying to prove anything." "Then why are you talking to me like I failed an evaluation?" Paige rubbed both hands over her arms. "Mom's worried. Dad's worried. Even Aunt Denise notices. Aunt Denise defended me twice today. She also said you sound exhausted. Exhausted isn't insane." Paige recoiled. "Nobody said insane." No, you're all just standing around it with binoculars. That is exactly the kind of thing I mean. I opened my car door. Erin, wait, what? Her expression softened. For a moment, she was the sister who had sat on my bathroom floor after Daniel left, eating frozen pizza crust because neither of us had remembered plates. I love you, she said. I don't want every conversation to feel like I'm one wrong word away from losing you. The honesty took the fight out of me. Then stop carrying Mom's words into every conversation. I have my own thoughts. Then tell me one. She folded her lips inward. It was a childhood habit, one I hadn't seen in years. I think you're hurt, she said. And I think you want us to admit we've done something terrible, but I don't know what the terrible thing is. I sat with that. You don't show up, I said finally. Then Mom turns what I do into something we all did. If I point it out, I'm mean. If I say no the next time, I'm selfish. Now that I've stopped pretending it doesn't bother me, you're all treating my reaction as the problem. I took Dad to therapy. Once. There. That. It was once. But why can't it count? It does count. It just doesn't erase everything else. Her eyes filled, which made me feel like a monster even though I hadn't raised my voice. I can never do enough for you, she said. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because I had spent my entire adult life hearing the opposite message while doing enough for everyone. That's not true. It's how I feel. You're allowed to feel it. She flinched as if I had mocked her. Maybe I had. Celia's useful sentence had become too sharp from overuse. I drove home angry with Paige, Mom, and myself in roughly equal proportions. For the next week, I stopped initiating contact. I didn't announce it. I didn't block anyone or deliver a statement. I simply let messages remain messages. Mom asked if I knew when Dad's next therapy appointment was. I sent the therapist's number. Dad asked whether I could stop by to look at a loose cabinet hinge. I sent him the name of the handyman I used. Paige asked what we were doing for Mom's birthday, still 2 months away. I told her to decide and let me know. Each answer was polite. Each one seemed to create more alarm. Dad left a voicemail asking me to call because the house felt strange. When I called, he spent 10 minutes talking about baseball before saying, "Your mother thinks you're punishing her. I'm not. You haven't been over. I was there Sunday. That was Easter, which happened 4 days ago. You know what I mean? I'm not sure I do." He lowered his voice. "She thinks this job has changed your priorities." It has. That silenced him. "Work shouldn't come before family," he said. "Family shouldn't need to come before everything all the time. No one asked for everything. I nearly listed it. The couch, the pills, the socks, the groceries, the appointments, the insurance statements, the cabinet hinge. Instead, I said, I'm not doing this tonight." His sigh was soft and disappointed. "You're shutting people out. I'm ending a phone call. You used to talk things through." "No, I used to agree eventually." "On Saturday," Paige texted, "can we have brunch tomorrow? Just us." I hate this. I stared at just us longer than I should have. I wanted my sister back. Not the flattering version of her who appeared only when I was useful, and not the careless version I had built in my angriest moments. I wanted the actual Paige, the woman who could be selfish, funny, perceptive, and cowardly in the same 5 minutes. "What time?" I wrote. 11. My place. I'll make those lemon pancakes you like." I arrived at 10:58 with a bottle of maple syrup because Paige's cabinet contained 7 kinds of hot sauce and 1 tiny jar of expired honey. Matt opened the door. His smile looked painful. "Hey," he said. I heard voices in the living room. Mom was seated on the couch beside Aunt Denise. Dad occupied the armchair. There was a box of tissues on the coffee table, a tray of untouched mugs, and no sign of pancakes. Paige stood near the window holding a stack of index cards. I stopped inside the doorway. "What is this?" "Please don't leave," she said. Matt closed the door behind me, then immediately looked sorry he had. Mom leaned forward. "Honey, we're here because we love you." No, you don't even know what we're going to say. I know there aren't pancakes. Dad gave a nervous laugh. Nobody joined him. Paige gestured toward the empty chair facing the couch. Can you sit down? Why? So we can talk. We could have talked without an audience. They're not an audience. What are they? Aunt Denise twisted a paper napkin between her fingers. Aaron, maybe hear her out. That hurt more than seeing Mom. I sat because leaving would become part of whatever story they had already agreed on. Paige took the chair beside mine. She placed the cards face down on her knee. We've noticed some changes, she began. Who's we? Please, let me get through this. Her voice shook. Mine didn't. She said I seemed angrier, more suspicious. She said I had withdrawn from people who loved me and interpreted normal family interactions in the harshest possible way. Mom watched her closely, lips parted, like a director silently reminding an actor to slow down. Then Paige started asking questions. Was I sleeping? Had I been having trouble concentrating? Did I feel people were deliberately taking advantage of me? That one was clever enough to make me smile. Paige glanced at the card before asking whether my breakup with Daniel might still be affecting my judgment. My mother had pulled an old wound off the shelf and handed it to my sister as evidence. Matt stopped touching the coffee pods. Dad stared at the rug. I said, "Ask the next one." Paige swallowed. Her fingers had begun to sweat against the cards. When she reached the question about ordinary mistakes feeling intentional, two stuck together. She tried to separate them, lost her grip, and the whole stack scattered across the floor. Mom moved first. Paige, pick those up. But I was already bending. I read the instructions in Mom's handwriting. Denial, deflection, hostility, obligation. Every answer I might give had been diagnosed before I entered the room. I placed one card on the coffee table. Then I looked at each of them and asked, "What do all of you need to be true about me so none of you have to change?" Dad whispered my name. Mom began to cry, and Paige, still on her knees gathering the script, said, "That isn't fair." I stood. "No," I said. "It finally is." Mom pressed a tissue to her mouth. "I knew you'd do this," she said. "Do what?" "Turn concern into an accusation. You wrote response instructions. I was helping Paige organize her thoughts." Paige had gathered the cards into a crooked pile. One remained under the coffee table. Matt saw it and put his foot over it, not to hide it exactly, but because he seemed unable to decide whose side required fewer movements. "Those aren't thoughts," I said. "They're stage directions." "You were already coming in defensive," Mom said. "I thought I was coming for pancakes." "That's why I told her we should be honest about the meeting," Dad muttered. Mom turned toward him, and then she wouldn't have come. The admission sat there. Aunt Denise stopped twisting the napkin. I looked at Paige. "You lied to get me here. I said I wanted brunch." "There is no brunch. I thought we might eat after." Matt closed his eyes. Despite everything, I almost laughed. "After what? My diagnosis?" "No one is diagnosing you," Paige said. "You asked about my sleep, my concentration, my breakup, and whether I imagine people taking advantage of me." "We're worried about your mental health," Mom said. "What part?" "See? You're cross-examining every word because none of your words say anything." Dad shifted in his chair. "Sweetheart, maybe sit back down." "No. We're trying to have a conversation. You're trying to make me answer questions Mom wrote so you can conclude my boundaries are symptoms." "No one said boundaries," Mom insisted. I picked up the card I had left on the table and held it by one corner. "Bring conversation back to her obligation to family once she is calmer." Mom's face tightened. "That looks terrible out of context." "It is the context. I was trying to make sure we didn't get distracted. By me, by anger, by blame, by the reasons I'm angry." Mom stood. "You think I'm some kind of monster. I think you wrote every answer I could give into a trap." "I did not." "What happens if I deny I'm unstable?" "No one used that word. It's on the cards." Paige looked down. "Mom." "What?" "You said there wasn't anything like that." Linda Mercer had many forms of softness, and her most effective one was wounded disbelief. She looked at Paige as if Paige had forgotten whose idea the meeting had been. There isn't. I wrote possible reactions. I did research. Where? I asked. That doesn't matter. Was it a website? A book? Did you talk to someone qualified? I don't need a degree to know my daughter. The sentence might have sounded loving to somebody outside the room. Matt finally moved his foot. The hidden card read, "If she focuses on wording, remind her this is about the pattern." He picked it up, read it, and handed it to Paige without comment. She didn't take it. Dad pushed himself out of the armchair. He no longer needed the cane, but he rose slowly, placing one hand on the armrest. Everyone needs to calm down. I'm calm, I said. That's not helping. I looked at him. What would help? Not making this uglier than it needs to be. There it is. What? The most important thing to you is that this not become ugly. Not that Mom did it. Not that Paige helped. Just that I react politely enough for you to avoid choosing a side. Life isn't sides. Then why am I in a chair facing all of you? He looked at the empty chair, and something shifted in his face. Not agreement. Recognition, maybe. It disappeared when Mom touched his arm. This was my idea, she said. Don't blame your father. I blame him for being here. Dad's mouth opened, then closed. Aunt Denise stood too. I think we should stop. Now? I asked. You sat through the questions. I thought it was going to be different. What did you think it was going to be? She looked at Mom, then Paige, searching for an answer they could share. I thought we were going to tell you we were worried, she said. You needed 5 people and cue cards for that? No, the honesty surprised me. Mom shook her head. Denise, don't. Don't what, Linda? She's right about the cards. Mom's eyes flashed. You agreed she hasn't been herself. Denise's face changed. I felt the floor tilt, though I was standing still. You said that? I said you seemed tired. You said more than that, Mom replied. Linda? What did you say? I asked. Denise pulled her coat tighter around herself, even though she hadn't been wearing it when I arrived. I said you sounded angry. I said I didn't know if the promotion was good timing. At Easter, she had defended me. In private, she had helped build the room. Okay, I said. Aaron, I didn't know about any script. Okay. Stop saying okay like that, Mom snapped. I looked at her. How would you like me to say it? With some understanding that we're terrified of losing you. You were losing my labor. You decided that meant I was losing my mind. Paige stood so quickly the cards spilled again. That is cruel. Is it wrong? Yes. You act like none of us care about you unless you're doing something for us. You invited me here by lying, because you don't listen anymore. I listen. I just don't obey as often. She started crying then, not like Mom, who cried in clean, controlled waves. Paige's face crumpled. She covered her mouth with both hands and turned away. The sight hit every older sister reflex in me. I wanted to touch her back. I wanted to say I knew she meant well even if I didn't. I wanted to make the room survivable for her. I picked up my purse instead. Mom moved between me and the door. Please don't leave like this. Move. You are proving exactly what we're saying. What should a healthy person do here? Stay and talk. For how long? What? How long do I have to stay before leaving isn't proof? She had no answer because there was no answer. There was only compliance. Matt stepped away from the island and opened the door. Mom stared at him. She asked to leave, he said. His voice was quiet, almost apologetic, but it was the first clean thing anyone had done. I walked out. Paige called my name once. Dad called it twice. I kept moving down the hallway past a woven sign on Paige's wall that said, "This is our happy place," past the elevator that took too long into the stairwell. I made it down one flight before my knees went weak. I sat on the concrete step with my purse in my lap and listened to my family's muffled voices above me. The fire door opened. I expected Paige. It was Matt. He stayed on the landing instead of coming closer. "Are you okay to drive?" The question was practical, not diagnostic. That nearly undid me. Not yet. He nodded. You can stay here as long as you need. Did you know about the cards? No. Did you know everyone would be here? Yes. I looked up. He accepted that look without defending himself. Paige said you'd leave if you knew, he said. She was right. I know. Why did you agree? He rubbed his jaw. Because your mom said this was what people do when someone's in trouble, and because Paige has been scared of me, of losing you. She picked an interesting strategy. I'm not saying it was right. No one in that room seems capable of saying anything was right or wrong. He nodded once. It was wrong. There it was. 2 words. No weather around them. Thank you. I should have said it inside. Yes. He went back upstairs. I waited until my legs stopped trembling, then drove home without music. My phone began ringing before I reached the highway. Mom, Dad, Paige. Mom again. At a red light, I turned the phone off. My condo looked exactly as I had left it. A throw blanket folded on the couch. 1 clean wine glass upside down on a towel. The regional travel binder on the counter beside an unopened electric bill. Nothing had shifted because I was angry. I took off my shoes and sat on the kitchen floor. The sentence on the card kept replaying. Once she is calmer. I had been calm. I had spoken clearly. I had left when I chose. Still, my body shook so hard my teeth clicked. I wondered whether that was what they meant. For 10 terrible minutes, I walked through their case against me. I had been angry. I had withdrawn. I had slept badly during Dad's recovery. I had interpreted comments as criticism. I had ended phone calls rather than talk things through. 5 people who knew me had gathered in a room because they believed something was wrong. Then I remembered the cards. Healthy concern did not need me to be wrong before I answered. I turned on my phone. 23 messages appeared. Mom, please call. This has gotten completely out of control. Dad, we love you. Come back and finish the conversation. Denise, I am sorry. I should not have come. Matt, Paige is with your parents. Just letting you know. Paige had sent 7 messages. The first said, I can't believe you walked out. The last said, please tell me you're safe. I replied, I'm home. Do not come over. Her answer arrived immediately. That's all? After what you said to me? I typed 3 different responses and deleted them. Then I wrote, I came because you said it would be just us. Mom wrote questions designed to turn every answer into proof against me. You all participated. I will contact you when I am ready. Paige called. I declined it. Mom called. I declined that too. Dad left another voicemail. Aaron, this silent treatment isn't like you. Your mother is a wreck. Paige can barely breathe. Whatever mistakes were made, you don't abandon people in the middle of a crisis. By crisis, he meant my reaction to what they had done. I listened twice to make sure. Then I walked to the bowl by the door and picked up my parents' spare key. It was brass, worn smooth around the edges, with a strip of blue tape on the head. I had carried it for 15 years. It had opened the door for burst pipes, forgotten ovens, late-night fevers, vacation mail, and one panicked call from Mom because she thought Dad had fallen in the shower when he was actually in the backyard. I set it on the counter beside my phone. The next morning, I drove to their house before work. Both cars were in the driveway. The kitchen light was on. I put the key in an envelope and wrote Mom and Dad on the front. No note. A note would become evidence. I slid the envelope through the mail slot and heard it land on the hardwood. Before I reached my car, the front door opened. Dad stood there in his robe holding the envelope. What is this? He asked. You know what it is. His face went pale. Don't be dramatic. I'm not. You can't return a key without it meaning something. It means you'll need to call someone else. For what? For whatever happens next. He stepped onto the porch barefoot. Aaron, wait. I got into my car. He stood in the cold with the blue taped key in his palm, looking less angry than frightened. I drove away anyway. At 9:30, Celia came to my office carrying 2 coffees. I didn't order room service. You've read the same email 4 times. I'm being thorough. You replied to Richard's question about mileage reimbursement with, "Sounds good. I agree with your analysis." I looked at my screen. He did analyze it. He asked whether the form should be blue. I closed the email. Celia set 1 coffee in front of me and sat down. "Do you need to leave?" "No. Do you need to stay?" I looked at her. "Some people come to work because they're fine," she said. "Some people come because it's the only place they know what happens next. Can I be both?" "Sure." I wrapped both hands around the coffee. My family staged an intervention about my sanity yesterday. Her eyebrows lifted, but she didn't perform shock. "That sentence had several traps in it," she said. "My sister invited me for brunch. My parents and aunt were there. They had questions." "What kind of questions?" "Whether I was sleeping, whether my breakup affected my judgment, whether I imagined people taking advantage of me. And what prompted this? I stopped doing things. Celia considered that. Were the things heroin?" I laughed into the coffee, a sudden ugly sound that turned into a sob before I could stop it. She handed me the tissue box from my own desk. I stared at it. "There was a box of these at the meeting. Then use your sleeve. Take back the symbolism." I did, which made her laugh, and for 30 seconds I was crying and laughing with my face pressed against my cardigan like a person who had, in fact, become unstable. When I could speak again, I told her about the index cards. "That's not an intervention," she said. "That's a deposition written by someone who hates objections. I keep wondering if I'm making it sound worse than it was." "Did your mother write possible answers before you arrived?" "Yes." "Then it sounds efficient." She stayed for another 5 minutes, asked whether I felt safe at home, then accepted my answer without treating the question as proof of anything. Before she left, she placed a blue mileage form on my desk. "For Richard," she said. "Work got me through the day. There were travel expenses to approve, a schedule conflict between 2 offices, and a spreadsheet whose creator had merged cells with the confidence of a vandal. Every problem had an edge. Nothing asked me to question whether it existed. At lunch, I turned my phone on. Mom had sent a long message divided into 5 paragraphs. She said the meeting came from love, apologized that I had misinterpreted the format, and explained that the cards were necessary because conversations with me had become difficult. She ended by saying she would always be there when I was ready to accept help. Dad wrote, "Your mother hasn't eaten." Paige wrote, "Returning the key was cruel." I put the phone back in my drawer. That evening, I drafted 1 message to all 3 of them. "I am taking space. Do not come to my home or workplace. Mom, I will not discuss reconciliation until you can acknowledge that you wrote questions designed to make every answer evidence against me. Do not call that concern. Dad, private reassurance does not undo your participation. Paige, I came because you said it would be just us. I will contact each of you when I am ready." I reread it until I could hear all their likely responses. Too formal, punishing, cold, threatening. Proof that the promotion had gone to my head. I sent it anyway. Dad replied first, "Understood. Love you." Then, 30 seconds later, "But your mother truly believed she was helping." I turned the phone off again. The quiet in my condo was different without their access. It wasn't peaceful. Peace has warmth. This was the silence after a refrigerator stops humming, when you suddenly notice how much sound had been holding the room together. I made pasta and reached for my phone twice to send Dad a picture because the sauce came out almost as dark as the one he made every Christmas Eve. I watched a ridiculous dating show Paige and I usually texted through, and when one of the men said he valued feminine communication, I instinctively typed, "Colonial shoemaker energy." Her name came up before I stopped. I deleted the message and finished the episode alone. On Thursday, Mom's cousin Sharon called. I hadn't spoken to Sharon since Christmas. "I heard you're having a hard time," she said. "I'm not having a hard time." The lie came out fast. "Well, your mom said the family tried to talk to you and you cut everybody off. Did she mention the questions were written in advance?" There was a pause. She said they prepared. Did she mention she wrote instructions for how to respond if I denied I was unstable? She didn't use the word unstable. She wouldn't. Sharon gave the soft sigh of someone who had entered the conversation expecting a victim and found paperwork. Your mother's beside herself, she said. Whatever happened, she loves you. I know. You only get one family. I also only get one mind. I'm not letting them use it as a trash can for every problem they don't want to look at. That sounds extreme. Then don't do it to me. She ended the call after promising to pray, which was Sharon's preferred substitute for admitting she lacked information. By Friday, 3 more relatives had texted variations of thinking of you. None asked what had happened. I responded, thank you to each, and explained nothing. Denise left 2 voicemails. In the first, she said she was sorry. In the second, she said she needed me to understand that she had believed Mom's concern was genuine. I finally called her Saturday morning. She answered on the first ring. Aaron, why were you there? I told you. I thought, no. Before the meeting. What did Mom tell you? Denise was quiet. I stood at my kitchen window watching a neighbor try to force a cardboard box into a recycling bin that clearly hated him. She said you'd become obsessed with keeping track of things, Denise said. That you were angry over small mistakes. That you'd taken a demanding job without thinking it through and were pulling away from everyone. And you believed her. I believed some of it. Which part? That you were angry. I was. I know. Then why was anger evidence that something was wrong with me instead of evidence that I was angry? I don't have a good answer. The neighbor put one foot against the bin and pushed. The box gave way with a crack. Denise continued, Your mother said Paige wanted a family conversation. I thought we were going to tell you we missed you and ask what was happening. Then I got there and saw the chairs. You could have left. Yes. You could have stopped Paige after the first question. Yes. You didn't. No. Her willingness to agree denied me the fight I had prepared. Why? Because Linda looked certain. Paige looked scared. Your father was there. And I told myself if everyone else thought it was necessary, maybe I was missing something. So you let them use you as a vote. Yes. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry, she said. Not that you felt cornered, not that the meeting went badly. I'm sorry I helped corner you. That was the first apology that named an action. It still didn't make me ready. I can't make you feel better about this, I said. I'm not asking you to. I think you are a little. She breathed out. Probably. I need time. I understand. When the call ended, I cried again. Not because I had forgiven her, because she had given me 1 square inch of solid ground, and I hadn't realized how badly I needed it. The following Tuesday, Dad missed his surgical follow-up. I found out when Paige called me from the parking lot outside her office. Did you change Dad's appointment? No. He said it was today. It was today. Mom thought it was next week. Then why are you asking whether I changed it? Because you always put the appointments on the calendar. I put them on the calendar when I was handling them. You could have said you stopped. I returned the key. That doesn't erase the calendar. No. Time erases the calendar. Very clever. It wasn't meant to be. Paige exhaled into the phone. Cars hissed past her in the background. The surgeon can't see him for another 2 weeks. Okay. Okay? That's all? What do you want me to do? I don't know. Fix it. There it was, spoken without decoration. No. She went silent. I'm not calling the surgeon, I said. I'm not rearranging the appointment. Dad and Mom can handle it. He's your father. He's also an adult who knew he had a follow-up. He assumed you had it under control. I didn't tell him that. You've always had it under control. That is not consent to have it forever. Paige's voice sharpened. You're punishing Dad now? No. Dad missed an appointment because you didn't remind him. Listen to what you're saying. I am listening. I'm saying your little boundary experiment has consequences for other people. I gripped the phone. It's not an experiment. Fine. Your new life where nobody gets to ask you for anything. People can ask, and you get to say no. Yes. How convenient. For you, apparently not. She hung up. 10 minutes later, Dad called. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Well, he said, I suppose I owe you an apology. I sat back in my office chair. For what? I missed the appointment. I should have checked. It was not the apology I wanted, but it was one I hadn't expected. You should have. I called and rescheduled. Good. Your sister's mad. She called me. She's been doing a lot. I heard the unspoken request forming. I'm sure she has, I said. Your mother doesn't like driving downtown, and Paige has had to pick up some groceries and help with the insurance forms. I did those things. I know you did. Did you ever call Paige and tell her I was doing a lot? Dad paused. That's not fair. Did you? No. The word was barely audible. I waited. He cleared his throat. I didn't realize how much there was. You didn't have to. I handled it. Are you glad things are falling apart without you? The question hurt because part of me was, no, I said, but I'm not going to put them back together. He was quiet for a long time. Your mother cries every night, he said. I'm sorry she's hurting. You can stop it. So can she. She doesn't know what you want. Yes, she does. She thinks you want her to admit she was trying to hurt you. I want her to admit she tried to control me. That's a strong word. It was a strong meeting. He sighed. I miss you, Aaron. My throat tightened. I miss you too. Then come over. I almost said yes. I pictured his coffee mug on the kitchen table, the crooked cabinet hinge, Mom pretending not to watch the driveway. Instead, I asked, have you told Mom the meeting was wrong? That's between your mother and me. No, I said. That's between all of us. He didn't argue. He just whispered, I don't know how to do this. For once, I let that be his problem. The problem with letting it be his problem was that I still knew exactly how to solve it. I could call Mom. I could say the meeting had frightened me, which was softer than saying it had betrayed me. She could cry and explain. I could accept an apology shaped mostly like an excuse. Dad would ask everyone to move on. Paige would send a joke. By Sunday, I would be sitting at the kitchen table checking insurance statements while Mom made coffee. The entire route back was lit. I spent the next Saturday reorganizing a closet that did not need reorganizing. At noon, I found the overnight bag I had left by my parents' stairs during Dad's recovery. Mom had returned it sometime before Easter, freshly laundered, with my toothbrush tucked into the side pocket and 2 travel-size bottles of shampoo added. I sat on the floor holding one of the bottles. That was how Mom loved. She made sure I had shampoo while constructing a case against my judgment. Both things were true, and I hated the part of myself that wanted one truth to cancel the other. Denise asked me to lunch the following week. I said yes after making clear we would not discuss reconciliation. I'm not a peace envoy, she said. You own 3 white flags. They're napkins. Your mother gave them to me. We met at a diner near my office. Denise was already in a booth, wearing red lipstick and studying the menu as if it had personally disappointed her. They removed the turkey melt, she said when I sat down. Maybe it was a sign to let the sandwich go. She pointed at me. Don't use Linda's bad advice against me. For a while, we talked about ordinary things. Her dry cleaner had located the belt in a bin marked miscellaneous. My first monthly report had been approved without corrections. Dad was walking every morning, though he called it checking the neighborhood for code violations. Then Denise stirred cream into her coffee and said, Your mother told Sharon you're taking time away for your mental health. I watched the spoon circle. Of course she did. I corrected her. What did she say? That I don't understand the full situation, meaning she does, meaning anyone who disagrees becomes uninformed. I looked out the window. A delivery driver was stacking boxes beside the pharmacy next door. Did Sharon believe her? Sharon believes whoever sounds saddest. I'm not calling relatives to prove I'm sane. I didn't say you should. I know. I'm saying it for me. Denise reached across the table, then stopped before touching my hand. People who know you will see you're fine. I'm not fine. She nodded. I'm hurt, I said. I'm furious. Sometimes I can't sleep because I hear their questions over and over. That doesn't mean Mom was right. No. But if I admit I'm not fine, she gets to use it. Only if you give her permission. That sounds like something printed on a mug. It probably is. Mugs are occasionally right. The waitress brought our food. Denise had ordered a tuna melt in protest, then complained that it tasted like surrender. After lunch, she asked whether I wanted updates about the family. No, I said, then, maybe Dad, then, I don't know. I can wait for you to ask. It was such a simple courtesy that I almost cried over the pickle on my plate. My mother's birthday moved closer without me planning it. Paige sent a group message that included me, Dad, Matt, and Denise. Dinner at Mom and Dad's, Saturday at 6. Keeping it low-key because things are stressful. Please tell me what you can bring. I read it and put my phone down. An hour later, Paige messaged me separately. Can you do the lemon cake? No. It was the first time I had answered her since the missed appointment. She replied, You don't want to or you're not coming. I'm not coming unless Mom acknowledges what she did. The dots appeared, vanished, then returned. So you're skipping her birthday. I'm choosing not to attend a dinner where everyone has to pretend the meeting was an expression of love. It's one night, Aaron. The meeting was one morning. That was petty. I knew it the moment I sent it, but I did not take it back. Paige called. I answered because texts had started turning us into worse versions of ourselves. You really won't come? She asked. Has Mom apologized? She said she was sorry about the format. That isn't an apology. She doesn't know what words you want. I sent the words. She thinks you want her to humiliate herself. By accurately describing an action, she was concerned. I got up from my desk and shut my office door. Then why did she tell me we were all getting together after I had already arrived? That was me. Why did she write how you should respond if I denied your accusations? She panicked. Why did the card say to bring me back to my family obligations? Paige was silent. That isn't concern, I said. That's the point. You think everything is about using you. No, I think that meeting was about using me. She let out a breath. Fine, don't come. But I need you to know I'm handling the whole dinner because Mom says she doesn't have the energy. Then don't handle it. It's her birthday. Order food. She wants the chicken dish you make. Tell her I'm not making it. I did. She cried. I waited. Paige's voice sharpened. You don't care. I care. I'm still not making chicken. It must be nice to switch yourself off like this. I'm not switched off. You sound completely fine. The accusation was almost funny. I had graduated from too emotional to not emotional enough. What should I sound like? Human. I closed my eyes. Do you want my recipe? No. Okay, stop saying okay. I don't know what answer won't make you angrier. I'm angry because I'm stuck doing everything. There it was again. Everything I used to do, this is not the same. How? Because you liked being in charge. I thought of the dry erase calendar. Paige eating cheese. Mom sending me for grocery bags while telling me how capable I was. No, I said. You liked me being in charge. Paige hung up. Saturday evening, I made plans with Anita from work and 2 women from the Columbus office who were in town for a conference. We went to a restaurant with uncomfortable metal chairs and excellent tacos. I kept checking my phone even though I had muted the family chat. At 7:12, Dad sent me a photograph privately. Mom sat at the dining table in a blue blouse, smiling over a grocery store cake with pink roses. The lemon chicken was on a platter in front of her. One piece was darker than the others. Paige had probably tried to keep it warm while finishing the sides. Wish you were here, Dad wrote. I enlarged the picture. Matt looked tired. Denise was making a face at the camera. Paige had flour on her black shirt and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Mom looked beautiful and fragile and wronged. A slice of grief moved cleanly through me. I typed, I love you all. I hope Mom has a good birthday. Before I could send it, Anita returned from the restroom and glanced at my face. "You need to go?" she asked. "No." This time I knew I meant it. I sent the message and turned my phone face down. At 10:40, while I was brushing my teeth, Paige called. I almost let it ring out. Then I remembered the flower on her shirt. "Hello?" "Dad can't find his medication list." Her voice was thin with exhaustion. "It was in the discharge folder. Mom moved the folder, then asked Mom. She says she put it somewhere safe. Check the desk in the den. Second drawer, I did. The kitchen drawer by the phone? Full of coupons." "Then I don't know. Dad has a dentist appointment Monday, and the form asks for current medications. He can bring the bottles. He doesn't want to bring 7 bottles into the dentist like a drug dealer. That's not what a drug dealer does." Under different circumstances, Paige would have laughed. Instead, I heard a cabinet slam. "Can you please just tell me where you put it?" "I put it in the discharge folder, which is gone. I haven't been in the house for weeks." "Exactly." I spat toothpaste into the sink. "What does that mean?" "It means you built a system only you understood and walked away." The folder had labels. Mom hated the labels. Mom asked me to make the labels. Well, now she says they made her feel incompetent. I gripped the edge of the sink. "Paige, why are you calling me?" "Because I need help. I don't know where the folder is." "You could think." "I am thinking." "Think harder." The words came out in Mom's rhythm. We both heard it. There was a long pause. "Dinner was awful," Paige said. I sat on the closed toilet lid. "What happened?" "Nothing. Everything." She cried because the chicken was dry. Then she said she wasn't crying about chicken, like I'm an idiot. Dad told me the potatoes needed salt. Aunt Denise brought the wrong wine, apparently. There's a wrong wine now? Riesling. Don't ask. I could hear her moving through our parents' kitchen, opening and closing drawers. Mom spent the whole night saying she didn't want anyone going to trouble, Paige continued, while identifying every single way the trouble was being done incorrectly. That sounds like her. She kept saying you would know where things were. That also sounds like her. And every time she said your name, she looked at me. I leaned my forehead against the cool bathroom wall. "Did you tell her to stop?" "Yes." "What did she say?" "That I was being sensitive." The words sat between us. I did not say, "Now you know." I wanted to. The sentence rose all the way to my teeth. Instead, I said, "Check the drawer under the microwave." "What?" "Mom keeps important things there because nobody else thinks it's a drawer." I heard footsteps, then wood sliding. "Oh my God," Paige whispered. "You found it?" "Yes." Paper rustled. For one dangerous second, relief softened us both into our old shape. Then Paige said, "See? This is why we need you." I closed my eyes. "No," I said. "This is why you need to learn the house. You couldn't give me 1 minute." "I gave you the answer. With a lecture. That wasn't a lecture. It felt like one." There was another pause. When Paige spoke again, her anger had gone quiet. "Mom asked me to stay tomorrow and go through all their bills. You don't have to. She says she can't focus since you cut her off. That doesn't make you responsible. Somebody has to be." The sentence had once belonged to me. I heard Dad in the background asking whether she had found the list. Paige told him yes. "Go home," I said. "I can't." "Yes, you can. She'll cry." "Probably. And then what? Then she'll be crying." Paige gave a tired, humorless laugh. "You really have changed," she said. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, toothpaste on my shirt, eyes swollen from a birthday dinner I had not attended. "I'm trying to," I said. She didn't hang up immediately. Neither did I. We stayed on the phone another minute, listening to each other breathe. Then I heard Mom call from the living room. "Paige, before you go, could you look at the bank statement?" Paige shut a drawer harder than necessary. "I thought you were staying," Mom added. "I have to work tomorrow. It won't take long," Paige whispered. "What do I do?" It was such a ridiculous question. She was 36, married, employed, and standing in a house with 2 capable adults. But I knew exactly what she meant. She wasn't asking how to leave. She was asking how to survive the moment after she chose to. Say you're going home, I told her. And when she asks about the statement, tell her you'll look at it another time. I don't want to look at it another time. Then don't add that part. Mom called again. Paige inhaled. I'm going home, she said louder. There was silence on her end. Then Mom asked, Is Aaron telling you to leave? Paige looked at the phone as if Mom could see through it. No, she said, I'm telling you. She hung up before I could answer. The next morning, I had one message from her. I left. Mom cried. Dad found the statement and nothing was wrong with it. I typed, good. Then I deleted it because good sounded like a victory lap. I wrote, I know that was hard. Her response took an hour. Don't patronize me. I put my phone away. Dad asked me to meet him for breakfast on Wednesday. He chose a diner halfway between my condo and his house, though he described it as neutral territory. Like we were negotiating a ceasefire between countries with identical accents. He was already in a booth when I arrived. He had his cane propped against the wall even though he hadn't needed it for weeks. Why do you have that? I asked. Senior discount. You already qualify. They don't need to know that. I sat across from him. He looked good. Thinner, maybe, but his color had returned, and he moved without the careful stiffness he'd had after surgery. He pushed a mug toward me. Coffee, oat milk, cinnamon. I looked at it. Your sister told me how you take it, he said. Thank you. The waitress came, called Dad handsome, and took our orders. He flirted just enough to make her laugh, then watched her leave with the pleased expression of a man whose hip replacement had not affected his core business. For a few minutes, we talked about baseball. He complained about a relief pitcher. I disagreed. It felt so normal that I could almost imagine the past month had been a long, stupid misunderstanding. Then Dad stirred his coffee and said, Your mother wanted to come. Why didn't she? I told her this needed to be you and me. Does she know you're here? His spoon stopped. She knows I left the house. I leaned back. Don't do that, he said. What? Make one detail the whole conversation. It's a relevant detail. She would think I was going behind her back. You are. I'm trying to keep things from getting worse. For who? He set the spoon down. I miss talking to you. I miss you too. Then why does it have to be this complicated? I looked at his familiar face, the deep line between his eyebrows, the tiny shaving cut near his jaw. I had spent years translating him into the best possible language. Dad isn't silent, he's easygoing. Dad isn't avoiding Mom, he's keeping peace. Dad doesn't agree with her, he just doesn't want to fight. What did you think was going to happen at Paige's? I asked. He rubbed one thumb over the edge of his mug. Your mother said you were struggling. And? She said Paige wanted to talk to you with the family there. Did you know about the cards? Not until I got there. And when you saw them? I didn't know what was on them. You watched Paige read from them. I thought they were notes. They were notes. Written by Mom. I know that now. You knew it when they fell. He looked toward the window. The waitress brought our plates. Dad thanked her, added ketchup to his eggs, and waited until she walked away. I should have stopped it, he said. The words were quiet, but they were real. Yes. I'm sorry. My throat tightened. Thank you. He nodded, relieved. Too relieved. Have you said that to Mom? His fork paused. Aaron, have you? That apology is between you and me. No, the action involved all of us. I can't make your mother say something she doesn't believe. You could say what you believe. I just did. In a diner, she doesn't know you're in. His face hardened. Why isn't that enough? Because you support me in private and protect her in public. That is not what I do. At the meeting, you told me not to make it ugly. At Easter, you told me I was taking things hard. Afterward, you left a voicemail saying I had caused a crisis by leaving. I was upset. So was I. I apologized for not stopping it. You're still hiding the apology from Mom. He pushed his plate away, though he had taken only 3 bites. Your mother is not the enemy. I didn't say she was. You talk like everything is a campaign. No, Dad. I talk like choices have names. He looked suddenly tired. I don't know what you want from me, he said. I want you to stop making me responsible for the peace you buy with my silence. That sounds like therapy. It sounds like English. He almost smiled, then it disappeared. We finished breakfast carefully. When the check came, he grabbed it before I could. I'm still your father, he said. I know. Outside, he hugged me beside my car. He held on with both arms. Come see me, he whispered. I'm here, at home. Tell Mom what you told me. He let go. I watched him walk across the parking lot with the cane swinging uselessly at his side. That afternoon, I led my first quarterly call with all 4 satellite offices. Richard interrupted me twice. The third time, I said, let me finish this point, then I'll come to you, and continued speaking. Nothing exploded. Afterward, Anita sent me a message that said, nicely handled. The contrast was so clean it hurt. At work, a boundary was a sentence. At home, it was an emergency requiring witnesses. I started accepting invitations I used to decline, drinks with Anita, a Saturday morning walking group Celia had recommended, dinner at Denise's but only after she promised Mom would not appear holding a casserole and an emotional ambush. Denise made pot roast and overcooked it. Don't say it, she warned when I picked up my knife. I wasn't going to. You had a face. Apparently my face is a public utility. She poured more wine. Your mother called me disloyal. For seeing me? For refusing to tell her what you said. I set down my glass. Thank you. Don't make it noble. I told her your life was none of her business, then spent 20 minutes wondering whether I should tell you that. Boundaries are glamorous. I expected better outfits. We ate in her small dining room under a chandelier she had bought at an estate sale and installed despite not knowing whether it worked. It flickered whenever her furnace turned on. Denise told me Mom had stopped calling her for several days, then resumed with messages about Dad's dental appointment as if nothing had happened. She can't tolerate empty space, Denise said. She fills it with errands. I thought of my closet, my pasta, the phone I still checked every morning. I can't either, I admitted. No, you fill it with responsibility. The following Sunday, Paige asked me to meet for coffee. Just us, she wrote. I replied, is it actually just us? Yes. Matt offered to wear a disguise and sit across the room, but I said no. I met her at a crowded coffee shop where an ambush would have required reservations. She was sitting at a small table, tearing her cardboard sleeve into strips. You look good, she said. So do you. I look terrible. You look tired. That's more accurate. I sat down. She had already ordered my coffee. Oat milk, cinnamon. We both noticed the pattern and said nothing. How are Mom and Dad? I asked. Dad's fine. Mom has developed an allergy to understanding mail. I tried not to smile. She had me drive over Tuesday because she got something marked important. Paige continued. It was a coupon from the cable company. Was it a good coupon? Aaron, sorry. Thursday, she couldn't get the grocery app to work. Friday, Dad's dentist wanted the name of his orthopedic surgeon. Yesterday, she said the kitchen faucet sounded different. Did it? It sounded like a faucet. Paige dropped the pieces of cardboard onto the table. I know you think this is justice. I don't. Some part of you does. Some part of me is relieved you can see what I was talking about. That's the same thing. No, it isn't. She leaned closer. Mom is a mess. Dad is pretending he isn't. I'm doing all the things you dropped, plus my actual life. Matt barely sees me. Then say no. To what? Groceries? Medical forms? Dad's appointments? Yes. Somebody has to do them. Mom and Dad can do most of them. They can hire help for some. You and I can choose specific things we're actually willing to do. She laughed without humor. You make it sound like a business contract. I make it sound like consent. There are parents. That doesn't erase consent. Paige looked around the coffee shop as if another table might offer a better sister. I came here to ask if you would take Dad's next appointment, she said. It's Thursday. I have inventory. No. Her eyes filled immediately. I knew you'd say that. Then why did you ask? Because I thought seeing me like this might matter. It does matter. Not enough. Not enough to go back. She wiped under one eye. You really can watch me drown. No, I'm telling you to get out of the water and leave Mom in it. Mom built the pool. Paige flinched. I regretted the line, but not enough to retract it. She isn't evil, she said. I know. She's scared. I know. She loves us. I know. Then how can you do this? Because all of those things can be true, while what she did is still wrong. Paige stared at me. For 1 second, I thought she understood. Then she shook her head. You always have the perfect sentence now. No. I've just had a lot of quiet. She gathered the cardboard strips into a pile. As she stood, I said, I miss you. Her face crumpled again, but this time she didn't look away. I miss you too. Then talk to me about us, not how to get me back into service. She picked up her purse. At the door, she turned around. I don't know how you did this for so long, she said. My heart lifted. Then she added, but Mom wasn't like this when you were there. The hope dropped straight through me. Yes, I said. She was. Paige waited. You just weren't there to see it. She left without answering, carrying the torn pieces of the coffee sleeve in her hand. 3 days passed before Paige sent me another message. I told Mom I can't take Dad Thursday. I read it during a break between meetings. How did that go? She says you've been putting ideas in my head. I typed 3 different versions of I told you so and deleted everyone. What did you say? That the ideas were already there. I just used to have somewhere to send them. That answer sounded more like Paige than anything she had said in weeks. Mom had responded by calling Matt. She told him Paige was exhausted and not making good decisions. Matt told her that Paige was at work and could make her own decisions. Mom cried. Then she called Dad, who called Paige and asked why she was upsetting her mother over one appointment. Paige finished the story with, I took him. It was easier. I stared at that sentence. I know, I wrote. She didn't reply. My next trip was to Indianapolis. I drove down on a Tuesday afternoon with Anita, who spent the first hour ranking gas station snacks by structural integrity. Pretzel rods were dependable. Cheese puffs had no moral center. Raisins were not a snack, but a consequence. We checked into a hotel near the office and spent the evening preparing for a presentation to managers who had been using 3 different reporting formats because each believed his was the official one. At dinner, Anita asked, Do you ever think about going back to Daniel? The question surprised me enough that I dropped a tortilla chip. What brought that up? You looked at a man across the room like you knew him, and then you looked sad. I glanced behind her. The man had Daniel's shoulders, but none of his face. Sometimes, I admitted. Have you talked? No. Was he terrible? No. That would be easier. She nodded. The decent ones are very inconvenient. I told her the shortest, honest version. Daniel wanted a shared life. I kept promising one after the next family crisis. Eventually, he stopped believing there would be an after. Did you want the same things? She asked. I thought I did. That wasn't my question. I looked down at my plate. I wanted them as long as nobody else needed something first. Anita didn't tell me I had been selfless. She didn't say Daniel should have understood. That sounds expensive, she said. It was. The next day, I gave the presentation without notes. One manager argued that the new reporting schedule would create unnecessary pressure. I asked him which deadline was unrealistic. He identified one. We changed it. No one accused him of being hostile. No one accused me of being controlling. We adjusted the problem because he had named it. On the drive home, Anita was asleep in the passenger seat when Dad called. I let it go to voicemail. Hey, sweetheart, my birthday's in 2 weeks. Your mother wants to do dinner here, nothing big. I want you there. I don't want to talk about the meeting or the key or who said what. I just want my family at one table. Think about it. I listened again at a rest stop. The request sounded modest. 1 dinner, 2 hours, a cake. I could sit across from Mom and talk about the weather. I had done harder things for people I loved, but I don't want to talk about the meeting was not neutrality. It was the price of admission. I called him after I dropped Anita at her car. I got your message. Good. You're coming? I haven't decided. What is there to decide? Whether nothing big means Mom acts like she didn't do anything, and everyone punishes me if I won't act the same. Nobody is punishing you. You're asking me not to mention why I haven't been in the house. I'm asking for one peaceful evening. Peaceful for who? He groaned. Do you hear yourself? Yes. Every sentence is a negotiation now. Because every invitation has conditions. The condition is don't fight at my birthday. I don't want to fight. Then come. Has Mom acknowledged the meeting was wrong? His silence answered first. She says she regrets how it happened, he said. Not what I asked. Why do you need those exact words? Because every other version makes what she did my misunderstanding. Dad breathed into the phone. I'm 70 years old, he said. You're turning 68. Emotionally, I'm 70. I laughed before I could stop myself. He seized on it. See? We can still talk like people. We are people. You know what I mean? I love you, Dad. I love you too. I'm not promising dinner. His voice hardened. Then I guess I know where I stand. The call ended before I could answer. I sat in my car outside my condo looking at the dark windows. He knew exactly where he stood. He stood in a protected space between Mom's choices and my consequences, asking me to close the distance. I just wasn't carrying him across it anymore. The family's version of my condition evolved. According to Sharon, I had taken some time to focus on myself. According to a former neighbor who messaged me online, I had experienced burnout. Denise heard Mom tell someone I was doing better now that my new position had settled down. She's giving your job credit for curing the problem she invented, Denise said over the phone. I should send Celia flowers. Your mother doesn't like a story without an ending. She can have one. The ending is she did something wrong. She prefers endings with less personal growth. I laughed, but the shifting language bothered me. Mom was turning my silence into a treatment plan she could claim had worked. At a retirement party for one of Dad's former co-workers, Sharon approached me beside a tray of stuffed mushrooms. It was the first extended family event I had attended since the meeting. Mom and Dad had declined because Mom said Dad was tired. He had played 18 holes of golf that morning. Sharon touched my arm. You look wonderful. Thank you. Your mother said you're feeling more like yourself. Across the room, Denise looked at me over the rim of her wine glass. I've always been myself, I said. Sharon's smile flickered. Of course. My family staged a meeting because I stopped managing their responsibilities. Mom wrote questions in advance and instructions for how to treat my answers as symptoms. I left. That's what happened. Her mouth opened. I took one mushroom. I'm not asking you to pick a side. I'm telling you once because you spoke to me like I'd been sick. Sharon glanced around, perhaps checking whether anyone had heard. I only knew what Linda told me. I know. She looked embarrassed, but embarrassment was not fatal. I had survived plenty of it. I walked away without offering to make her comfortable. The following Sunday, Paige asked if she could come to my condo. I almost said no. Then she wrote, I have something of yours, not an ambush. Matt will stay home, and Mom doesn't know. I told her she could come at 4. She arrived at 3:55 carrying a paper grocery bag and a stack of index cards, held together with a rubber band. My stomach tightened at the sight of them. I brought frozen pizza, she said, the good kind. There's a good kind? The one that doesn't taste like a cutting board. I let her in. She placed the pizza on my counter and the cards beside it. Mom's blue ink showed through the top card. Why do you have those? I asked. Mom told me to throw them away after you left. Of course she did. She said they looked worse than they were and there was no reason to keep upsetting everyone. Did you agree? At the time? Kind of. I folded my arms. I didn't throw them away, she continued. I put them in my desk. Matt found them when he was looking for stamps. What did he say? He read them. And? He asked why I had agreed to read them to you. Paige's eyes filled, but she did not look away. What did you tell him? I asked. That Mom made it sound reasonable. That's not an answer. I know. She took off her coat and draped it over a chair. Her hands shook slightly. Can I sit? I nodded. She sat at the kitchen table facing the cards. I remained standing. I've practiced this, she said. Did Mom write it? Her face twisted. I deserve that. Yes. She pressed both palms together. I'm sorry I lied to get you there. I'm sorry I read those questions. I'm sorry I kept going after I knew what they were doing to you. I waited. Mom did write them, she said, and she did push for the meeting. But she didn't make me do it. No, I wanted to. That was not what I expected. Paige swallowed. Not because I thought you were crazy. I didn't. I thought you were angry, and I hated how your anger made me feel. What did it make you feel? Lazy. Selfish. Like the person everyone loved because someone else was doing the hard part. The oven clicked as it preheated. Neither of us moved. I told myself you liked being needed, she continued. I told myself you judged everything I did anyway, so there was no point trying to do it your way. And when Mom said you were turning normal mistakes into proof we didn't care about you, I wanted that to be true. Why? Because then I was still the good sister. Her voice cracked on good. I sat across from her. In that room, she said, everyone was looking at you like you were the problem, and I liked not being the problem. There it was, no weather, no good intentions, an ugly truth spoken in her own voice. What changed? I asked. Paige looked toward my counter. Mom started doing it to me. I said nothing. When I couldn't take Dad to the appointment, she said I was becoming rigid. When I left after her birthday, she told Matt I wasn't making good decisions. Last week, I said I couldn't spend Saturdays sorting their basement, and she asked why I was suddenly keeping score. The phrase hit both of us. Paige wiped her cheek. I heard myself at the coffee shop. I kept telling you Mom wasn't like this before. What I meant was she wasn't like this to me. That doesn't make the meeting worse. I know. Your apology can't depend on you getting the same treatment. I know. Do you? She nodded. Matt said almost the same thing. Matt is earning dangerous amounts of my respect. He's very smug about it. I looked at the cards. Why bring those? Because I don't want Mom to rewrite what happened, and because part of me still does that. I'll start thinking maybe the questions weren't so bad. Maybe you were already mad. Maybe if you'd stayed. If I'd stayed what? I don't know. Made it easier for us to believe we loved you. The kitchen went quiet. I touched the rubber band with one finger. I'm not ready to forgive you, I said. Paige nodded, crying openly now. Okay, and I need you to stop carrying messages. I don't want updates about how much Mom cries. I don't want you asking me to come back because helping them is hard. Okay? You don't get to call my boundaries cruelty. Okay. The words sounded different in her mouth. Not mocking. Not surrendered. Accepted. She pushed the cards toward me. I pushed them back. You keep them. Why? Because I already know what happened. She wrapped the rubber band around them again and placed them in her purse. The smoke alarm went off while the frozen pizza was still frozen. Paige looked up. Your oven is empty. I know. So this is unrelated? Completely. She climbed onto a chair and waved a dish towel beneath the alarm while I opened the window. It was absurd and loud and ordinary. When the alarm finally stopped, she stayed on the chair, hair falling across her face. Do you think Daniel had a point? She asked. The question surprised me. Yes, I said. She stepped down slowly. I'm sorry, I made him into a joke. He did look like a colonial shoemaker. He really did. We laughed, not because anything was fixed, but because for the first time in months, neither of us needed the laughter to hide what was broken. The pizza tasted like a cutting board. Paige chewed one bite, looked at the slice, and said, I may have confused expensive with good. You've always been vulnerable to packaging. The box had an Italian flag. That can be printed anywhere. We ate at the kitchen table with the index cards inside her purse on the floor between us. Their presence kept the conversation from becoming too easy. We talked about work, Matt, and Dad's birthday without pretending we had returned to normal. Dad really wants you there, she said. Did he ask you to say that? No. He asked me not to pressure you. That's new. He's been weird. Define weird. He apologized to me for assuming I'd handle his appointment. I sat back. He did? He said he had allowed himself to become helpless because everyone was busy arguing over who should help him. That sounds almost self-aware. Then he asked where Mom keeps the stamps. There he is. Paige smiled, then grew serious. I told him about the cards. He was there. I told him I kept them. I read him the ones he said he hadn't seen. What did he say? That they were bad. To Mom? To me. I looked down at my plate. Paige didn't soften it. I asked him the same thing. And he said he was waiting for the right moment. Your father has been waiting for the right moment since 1987, maybe longer. When Paige left, she hugged me at the door. It was brief and uncertain. Neither of us said, "Love you." The omission felt more honest than forcing it. Over the next week, she texted without asking for help. Mom bought Dad a shirt he hates. Matt thinks meatloaf is an acceptable birthday meal. Please advise whether I should contact an attorney. Dad says he doesn't want candles because 68 candles would affect homeowners' insurance. I answered when I wanted to. Sometimes immediately, sometimes hours later. Paige did not ask where I had been. Dad called on Tuesday evening. I'm trying this again, he said. Okay. No emotional blackmail. Strong opening. No appeals to my advanced age. You're 67 for 4 more days. Correct. A young man. I sat on my couch with my feet under the throw blanket. What are you trying again? Birthday dinner. Saturday. 6 o'clock. Your mother, Paige, Matt, Denise. Meatloaf. Unless I can convince them I deserve steak. You hate steak. I hate being told I can't have it. I smiled despite myself. Dad continued, I want you there. I understand why you might not come. That was new too. Does Mom? She knows I'm inviting you. That's not what I asked. No. I waited. He cleared his throat. She believes the family should move forward, without her moving anywhere. I told her an apology would be appropriate. Appropriate. Necessary. Did you tell her the meeting was wrong? He took too long. I told her the cards crossed a line. What about everything before the cards fell? I'm working on it. The phrase irritated me, but less than it once would have. Maybe because he was working, however slowly. Maybe because I no longer needed to stand beside him while he did. If I come, I said, I'm not agreeing to pretend. I know. If Mom apologizes for how I felt, I'm leaving. That's specific. I've had practice. I won't ask you to stay. I didn't believe him completely, but I believed he wanted to mean it. I'll come, I said. His relief was audible. Good. For you. I'll take it. Paige messaged 10 minutes later. Dad says you're coming. I am not asking you to bring anything. Please screenshot this for historical preservation. I did. Saturday afternoon, I changed clothes 4 times. The first dress felt too formal, as if I were attending a hearing. The second made me look tired. I rejected jeans because Mom would interpret them as a statement, then got angry that I was dressing around her interpretation and put the jeans back on. I settled on black pants and a green sweater Daniel had once said made my eyes look expensive. I had never understood the compliment, but I trusted it. Before I left, Denise called. I'm arriving at 5:45, she said. If you need to leave, I'll walk out with you. You don't have to. I know. It's still my plan. Is that support or an escape from awkwardness? Both. I contain multitudes. The drive to my parents' house took 14 minutes. I knew every traffic light, every turn, every place Dad complained about potholes. As I pulled into the driveway, my body remembered hundreds of ordinary arrivals. Grocery bags in the trunk, a spare key in my purse. No need to knock. This time I rang the bell. Dad opened the door before the second chime. He wore a blue button-down shirt, not the one Mom had bought. You came, he said. I said I would. I know. He hugged me hard. Over his shoulder, I saw Mom standing in the hallway. She wore cream slacks and a rose-colored blouse. Her hair was freshly styled. She looked smaller than I remembered, though nothing about her had changed. "Hello, Aaron," she said. "Hi, Mom." For a second, neither of us moved. Then she stepped forward and hugged me. I kept my arms at my sides before forcing them to rise. "You look well," she said. "So do you." Her mouth tightened, perhaps hearing mockery where there was none. Dad took my coat. Everyone's in the kitchen. The house smelled like meatloaf and onions. The cabinet hinge I had sent them a handyman's number for no longer sagged. On the kitchen counter, beside Mom's purse, sat the ceramic bowl where they kept their keys. My blue-taped spare was inside it. I looked away. Paige was mashing potatoes. Matt stood beside her chopping parsley with excessive precision. Denise opened a bottle of wine. "No lemon chicken," Paige said. "We learned from history." "Speak for yourself," Mom said. "I thought it was delicious." Paige looked at me, and something passed between us. Not alliance, exactly. Recognition. Matt kissed my cheek. "I've been informed meatloaf is grounds for divorce. Only if there's ketchup baked on top." He lowered his voice. "There is. Take half the house." Dad came in behind me. "Nobody is divorcing before cake." The humor loosened the room enough for us to begin. I offered to carry glasses to the table. Mom said, "You don't need to do anything." The old sentence touched the old nerve. "I know," I said. "I'm offering." She hesitated, then handed me the glasses. Dinner started carefully. Dad told a story about playing golf with a man who claimed every bad shot was caused by his previous hip, though he had never had surgery. Denise gave Dad a novelty cap that said, "Vintage 1958, which led to 10 minutes of arithmetic because she had bought the wrong year. "I'm not 80, Dad said. "You complain like you are. Return it." It was clearance. Mom cut her meatloaf into small, perfect squares. She asked about my work in a voice so neutral it felt rehearsed. "We're updating the regional reporting process," I said. "I was in Indianapolis last week. How was the drive?" "Fine." "Did you go alone?" "With Anita from HR. "That's good." I knew what she meant. Good that someone had been with me, as if travel itself were evidence of risk. Maybe I was unfairly interpreting her. That was the poison of the meeting. Every sentence now carried two possibilities, and I no longer trusted the part of myself that chose between them. I set down my fork. Mom noticed. "Is the meatloaf all right?" "It's good. You've barely eaten." "I'm eating." Paige interrupted. "Dad, tell Aaron what you did with the grocery app." Dad brightened. "I placed an order." "By himself," Paige said. "I'm a pioneer. He ordered 12 bananas. The picture showed one bunch. The quantity box said 12. Dad pointed his fork at her. "Bad design. Did you eat them?" I asked. "I'm currently potassium." We laughed. Even Mom. For a few minutes, the room became the place I had missed. Dad poured more wine. Matt argued that ketchup glaze was traditional. Denise said bad traditions were why history books were thick. Paige's knee bumped mine under the table, and neither of us moved away. After dinner, Mom brought out a chocolate cake. There were 6 candles, then 8, because Paige said place value mattered more than fire safety. Dad closed his eyes for a long time before blowing them out. "What did you wish for?" Denise asked. "If I tell you, Aaron will call it emotional blackmail." Everyone went still. Dad opened his eyes. "That was a joke." "It wasn't a good one," Paige said. "I know. Sorry." Mom began cutting the cake. The knife clicked against the serving plate. "I think," she said, "we all need to stop being so careful." No one answered. She placed the first slice in front of Dad. "This family has been walking on eggshells for weeks," she continued. "Tonight has been lovely. That should tell us something." My chest tightened. Dad said, "Linda." "What? I'm saying it's been lovely." Paige stared down at the table. I pushed my chair back an inch. She heard it. "Aaron, please. I am trying." "To do what?" "To apologize. Then apologize." Her eyes shone. I'm sorry that meeting made you feel attacked. Paige closed her eyes. I stood. Mom still held the cake server. You said you would come for your father. I did. You can't leave every time someone says something imperfectly. I told Dad I would leave if you apologized for my feelings instead of your actions. You gave him a script. The accusation was so perfectly shaped that I almost admired it. No, I said. I gave him a boundary. Dad stood slowly. Aaron, wait. You said you wouldn't ask me to stay. I know. Mom set down the cake server. Of course you discussed this behind my back. We discussed what I needed to be here, what you needed. She looked around the table. Everything has been about what Aaron needs. Paige spoke without looking up. Mom, stop. No, I have apologized over and over. You apologized for the format, I said, for my interpretation, for my feelings. You have never said what you did. I gathered my family because I was afraid for my daughter. You wrote questions so every response made me wrong. I wrote notes. You wrote that if I denied it, denial was part of the problem, because you deny everything. My purse was on the sideboard. I reached for it. Dad moved between me and the hallway, not blocking me, facing Mom. Linda, he said. She stared at him. He looked terrified, more frightened than he had before surgery when the nurse came to wheel him away and he had held my hand too long. But he did not make a joke. She said no, he said. She said she couldn't keep doing everything for us. And instead of listening, you decided something must be wrong with her. Mom's face went white. Dad's voice shook. You wrote every question. You recruited Paige. You asked Denise and me to sit there so Erin would doubt herself. You did it because she said no. No one moved. Dad took one breath, then another. And I let you, he said. Mom looked at Dad as if he had struck her. You let me? Yes. You sat there. I know. You agreed she was shutting us out. I agreed because disagreeing with you in private was easier than disagreeing with you in front of her. Dad's voice was still shaking, but he didn't look away. Mom turned toward Paige. And I suppose you feel the same way. Paige lifted her head. I lied to get Erin there, she said. I read the cards. I kept reading after I knew it was wrong. That wasn't my question. No, it's my answer. Mom's mouth opened, then closed. She looked around the table and found Denise. Don't, Denise said. I haven't said anything. You're about to ask whether I've turned against you. I haven't. I'm telling the truth about something I helped do. Mom pushed back from the table. This is unbelievable. On Tom's birthday. Dad gave a tired laugh. I knew I'd get blamed eventually. No one is blaming you. You just said on Tom's birthday like somebody picked the date to attack me. I was trying to have one nice night. So was I. Mom looked at me. Her eyes were wet, but she was not crying now. Did you plan this? No. You told your father what to say. I told him what I would do if you gave me another apology that made your choice my feeling. That's not a normal way for families to talk, neither are index cards. She flinched. I had my purse in my hand. The hallway was behind Dad. I could leave. Nobody could stop me without proving my point so completely that even Mom would have trouble describing it as love. Paige said, Mom, the cards are in my purse. Mom stared at her. Why? Because you told me to throw them away. I told you to throw them away because they were upsetting everyone. They upset Erin before anyone saw them. I was trying to help you talk to your sister. You wrote, if she becomes hostile, keep voices calm. Because I knew she would be angry. You planned to treat anger like proof. Mom's face changed then, not softened, changed. Some internal door she had held shut shifted under pressure. She was angry all the time, she said. I was angry when you called me in Columbus because Dad went to buy a furnace filter, I said. I was angry when you treated Paige's dinner as important and mine as interruptible. I was angry when you volunteered my home for Easter and described my no as exhaustion. Which part wasn't real? You made everything sound ugly. Some of it was ugly. We're your family. That doesn't make it beautiful. Her chin trembled. I have spent 40 years taking care of this family. I know. You say that like it means nothing. It means you should know what it costs. The room went quiet. Mom sat down again. Dad returned to his chair but remained on the edge of it, as if he might need to stand between us another time. Matt had not spoken. His hand rested beside Paige's on the table, close without covering it. Mom stared at the cake. Wax had hardened in little pools around the candles. When you said you were taking the promotion, she said, I knew things would change. Yes. You'd already been pulling away since Daniel. Daniel left. Because he didn't understand how close we are. Because I was never available for a life with him. She looked up, startled. I had never said that aloud to her. He asked too much, she said. He asked me to stop canceling our plans for things other adults could handle. Your father needed you. Sometimes, most of the time, you needed me to make needing me easier than figuring something else out. She wiped one cheek with her fingers. I didn't know you resented us. I didn't know I was allowed to. That is ridiculous. You've always spoken your mind. I spoke until you got hurt. Dad got quiet. Paige called me mean, and I fixed whatever the problem was. Paige closed her eyes. Mom looked at Dad. Is that what you think too? He rubbed one hand over his forehead. I think Erin made our lives easier, he said. And we called her difficult whenever she wanted us to notice. Mom shook her head slowly. No, I thanked her. Constantly. You called me your rock. Dad's face tightened. A rock doesn't get tired, I said. It doesn't have somewhere else to be. I didn't mean it that way, he whispered. I know. That was the hardest part. Most of the damage had been done by people who had not meant it in the exact way it landed. Intent had become our family's permanent hiding place. Mom folded her napkin into smaller and smaller rectangles. I thought you were making decisions because you were hurt, she said. I was hurt. I thought if we could make you see that, you would stop. Stop what? She looked at me for a long time. Leaving, she said. The word was small. I set my purse back on the sideboard, but I stayed standing. I wasn't leaving. I was asking you to carry your part. It felt like leaving. Those aren't the same thing. I know that now. Do you? She looked toward the ceramic bowl in the kitchen, where the blue-taped key sat among the others. I saw the key in the envelope, she said, and I thought you hated me. I returned a key. You carried it for 15 years. Yes, you were always the person I called. I know. What was I supposed to think? That I meant what I had been saying? Her face crumpled, and this time the crying was not neat. She pressed the folded napkin to her eyes. Dad started to reach for her, then stopped. He let her cry without turning the room into a rescue operation. After a while, Mom lowered the napkin. I wrote the questions because I wanted you to admit you weren't thinking clearly, she said. No one moved. I thought if you admitted that, you would let us help you make better decisions. Decisions that kept me available. Yes. The answer was almost inaudible. Paige's shoulders dropped. Mom looked directly at me. I used your breakup and your anger to make your no sound like something sick. I should not have done that. It was not a graceful apology. There was no sweeping declaration of equal love or sudden understanding of every year before it. It sounded dragged out of her, raw and incomplete. It was also true. I'm sorry, she said. Not for how it looked, not for the format. I'm sorry I did it. My eyes burned. I believe you're sorry right now, I said. Pain crossed her face. That's all? That's what I have. She looked as though she might argue. Then Paige said, Mom, just her name. No warning, no lecture. Mom nodded once. Okay, she said. I did not forgive her at the table. I did not give her a hug that turned the past into a misunderstanding. I sat back down because I had decided to, not because everyone's relief required it. Dad cut the cake himself. His first slice collapsed onto the plate in 3 pieces. Look what you've done, he told Mom. You've damaged me. She gave a wet, startled laugh. We ate cake that tasted faintly of candle wax. Denise told Dad the wrong year hat was non-returnable, so he wore it for the rest of the evening. Matt washed dishes. When I stood to help, Paige shook her head. "You're a guest," she said. The word felt strange. Mom heard it. Her hands went still over the leftover cake, but she didn't correct Paige. Before I left, Dad walked me to the door. Mom followed, holding the spare key. "You can take this," she said. The blue tape was beginning to peel at one corner. "No." She looked down. "It doesn't mean I'm never coming back," I said. "It means I'm not on call." She closed her fingers around the key. "All right." Dad hugged me. Mom asked if she could and waited until I said yes. That mattered more than the hug. Nothing transformed quickly after the birthday. Mom still used worry as a crowbar. She would ask whether I was sure about traveling, whether I was sleeping, whether I was taking enough time for myself in a tone that made taking time sound reckless. The first few times I asked if she was concerned or trying to change my decision. Sometimes she admitted it was the second one. Sometimes she got offended and ended the call. I let her. Dad began writing his appointments on the blessed calendar himself. His handwriting was enormous, and he spelled orthopedic 3 different ways before giving up and writing hip guy. He and Mom started using grocery delivery. Mom complained about every avocado but continued ordering them. They hired someone to clean twice a month after Paige and I both declined to spend a Saturday washing windows. Mom said having a stranger in the house felt indulgent. 2 weeks later, she asked the woman whether she also organized closets. Paige and I did not become effortless sisters. She still forgot plans. I still heard old excuses inside new explanations. Once she canceled lunch because inventory had gone badly, and I replied with a thumbs up so cold she called and said, "Use words or admit you're mad." I admitted I was mad. She rescheduled. She kept the index cards in her desk, not as a weapon against Mom and not as proof for anyone else. She said she wanted to remember how reasonable cruelty could sound when written neatly. Denise remained part of my life, though she never asked me to tell Mom that we had lunch. Dad stopped calling me secretly. If he had something to say, he said it where Mom could hear or accepted that silence was his choice. 3 months after his birthday, I drove to my parents' house for Sunday dinner. I arrived at 6, not 5:30. The door was unlocked, but I knocked anyway. Dad opened it wearing the vintage 1958 hat. You know that makes you 10 years older. People respect me now. In the kitchen, Mom had overcooked a roast. Paige was slicing carrots while Matt opened wine. Denise stood at the counter, arguing with a corkscrew. I placed the rolls I had agreed to bring beside the stove. Mom kissed my cheek. "Did you have trouble finding parking at work Friday? You sounded stressed when we talked." I wasn't stressed. She opened her mouth, then closed it. "Okay," she said. We sat down. My place was at the table, not near the kitchen. Halfway through dinner, Mom said, "I have a few things I need help with next Saturday. The hall closet is a disaster, and the patio furniture needs—" "No," I said. The word came out calmly. No explanation followed it. The room paused. I felt the old machinery gather itself. Mom's wounded silence, Dad's joke, Paige's persuasion, my surrender. Mom's lips parted. Before she could speak, Paige reached for the potatoes. "Then we'll figure something else out," she said. Dad passed her the bowl. Mom looked at me. Disappointment was still there. So was love. For once, neither one had been sharpened into a demand. "All right," she said. "More roast?" "Yes, please." She placed a slice on my plate. I stayed in my chair and let someone else carry the dish away.